What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch in the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Football is back, and that means it is almost flannel season. Experience the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel, which can make even the ugliest among us look pretty damn good. Jason and I should know. You can go to gomuskox.com, and Couch in the Rube listeners can use the promo code CAW15 for $15 off their flannel purchase. Jason, how you doing, brother?
Instead of the, right? Caw.
What's up, buddy? Good to see you. How was your vacation?
It was nice. I tweeted the pretentious photo at the beginning of it, sitting out back at our Lake Superior beachfront that backs up to the house we rent. It was fantastic.
And you told people that you weren't going to be on Twitter for the week?
I did a pretty decent job for the most part. I was better than usual. Being away helps.
You didn't post like my office for the day and by the beach? And
didn't do that. Well, there's one Baby Cakes, which is a really good muffins and coffee place in Marquette that I tweeted out, and just to be an ass, because that's what I do, and I apologize. But it was such a nice photo. I was like, oh, I should tweet this. I really need somebody like on my shoulder telling me not to do that sort of thing. But no,
we all do.
Yes. It's good to be back, and I can feel football season coming.
It's almost back.
Yeah, and we're gonna be back in the in our usual flow of Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday nights. This week we will not, but we will be. We're getting there. Next week we should be there. This week we're gonna just do two shows. We've got a little bit of some conflicts late in the week, but we will do a Twitter question show either Wednesday night or Thursday during the day.
We'll get back to normal here when the season kicks up, I hope. Yeah.
Game week, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll be working Labor Day. We'll be doing a Sunday night show on Labor Day.
And we got to work with your travel and all that, so we'll try to get you 3 podcasts a week if we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And we appreciate the fact that you listen to any of these. I mean,
well, yeah, that's a given.
Got to help you. And thank you.
We're going to have some new sounds this upcoming season. You want to preview?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Blue Wall.
I like it. Should we
this is for the gift card winner.
Okay. Oh,
I was gonna surprise you with this, but I figured
I like it.
And some other things, I guess. If people want to hear stuff, like, I don't listen back to the show, so if you have a timestamp and you really want something, just please let me know, because I wanted to get that. Apparently you yawned on a Spartan Speak, and I had to try to go through it again. And boy, oh boy, I tell you what, you guys, who sets the record for who has the longest answer? It's got to be Solari, right? I know we talk about Spartan Speak, but this was the first time I listened to a big chunk of it, and I was like, Jesus.
I once,
and you're long-winded as well, but
we once
Solari,
lost the timer to one of our board games at home because I took it in when we were still doing Spartan Speak downtown. And I was with Solari, and I said, when this 1 minute timer goes up, whoever's talking has to stop. We have to create more of a conversation and less talking to each other. And that's just we're both sort of competitive speakers, and we go on these things, and we don't think the other one's going to get, we don't have the right give and take. It is what it is. And a lot of people love that show, and I enjoy doing it, and it's just different. But it's different than what you and I do.
Well, yeah. It's less sophisticated, right?
Than this.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a tad.
This is sophistication.
But I was just saying,
101.
I know you guys are used to being on radio shows and doing interviews where they kind of want you to be that way. So I kind of get it. You're trying to fill an hour. Do you guys take commercial breaks or?
We don't.
Okay.
We just go.
It's harder when you just look at it and think it's an easy thing to do as a podcast. You have to make it interesting. You have to speak for 60 minutes. So I'm just busting balls, but definitely Solari wins in the
No doubt. He gets so upset because when we do our videos after games, Sean Windsor will give him so much shit about how long he goes on those videos, and it drives Solari nuts. But it's a competitive thing. He's trying to get his point in. And to be fair to him, there are times that I don't allow for that because I start talking so much. So I'm not going to, I mean, it's certainly we're both guilty of it. And
one more piece of new audio.
You've had too many donuts, mate.
Australian.
I like
right?
it.
For the Groovy Donuts thing. You know?
Yeah. Aussie Jason.
Welcome to the blue wall.
You've had too many donuts, mate.
Hey.
Well,
new season, new couch in the room. Huh?
Absolutely. New us.
We need, if Doug's around, can he do a new open or something? I don't know.
Well, as we get into our hot takes here?
Yeah, let's go.
Speaking of the blue wall.
Welcome to the blue wall.
Blue wall, this will be my first take. Blue wall fever picked up this past week, by the way, when Rainer Saban from the Detroit Free Press wrote.
How do you say it?
I say Reiner.
Is it Rainer or Reiner?
Rainer. Rainer.
I mean, have you met him? Have you
I know him well, but I always...
you don't know his name?
I know his name.
Well, it's Rainer then.
I always call him Reiner.
And he hasn't corrected you. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Shit.
right.
That's not great either. Right. Bad start. We'll fix this in post. Maybe for the first time ever. Like, my face is flush red thinking I have this wrong.
You know Carlos Monarez for sure. Jesus. Poor Rainer.
So anyway, his column was headlined, Pressure on Mel Tucker and Michigan State football after Payton Thorne named Auburn's starter.
Boo.
I think the word pressure is what triggered some of the initial discord. Beyond people, some people didn't even read it, some people did. The gist of the column was that with Payton Thorne having won the bet on himself and being named the starter at Auburn, where he transferred to obviously after spring ball, that increases the microscope on MSU's quarterback situation after opening up the competition to Thorne's backups in the spring, which precipitated Thorne leaving MSU. The blue wall is a fair criticism, I think, or a blue curtain, whatever you're going to say, when it involves a couple of columnists at the Detroit papers who tend to lean Michigan. And we know who they are. But just because you disagree with a take doesn't mean it's necessarily an anti-MSU blue wall take. Like, Drew Sharp wrote similar columns all the time, but he was such a big personality and he was so shitting on everybody. The Big Ten sucks and everything. Nobody thought it was one way or another as much, right? He was a former MSU beat writer, all that stuff. The question with the blue wall is always bias. And this may be poking the bear. And I think Rainer is an equal opportunity poker. He definitely doesn't give a shit about either school. He has no love for Michigan. I mean, I've had conversations with him. It's not like he has something for Michigan. He's not from here, doesn't care, gets annoyed as shit by Harbaugh with some of his behavior, and writes the stuff there that they don't like at times. This isn't the story to make that case. And people, I brought up the J.J. McCarthy thing last year and the Michigan quarterback situation, different situation. They opened up a competition that played into the season. It wasn't that one guy transferred and then was at a different school. It's a slightly different situation. The take itself, I think, is off the mark for a couple of reasons. One, the idea of pressure in the headline, which is, whatever, it adds to some views or whatnot, assumes consequences. If Payton Thorne wins 10 games at Auburn and is all SEC, and MSU's younger QB struggled this season, that doesn't mean Tucker opening the competition was wrong. How he communicated it, perhaps a mistake. Thorne should not have found out at a press conference. He deserved better than that. Now, he did not deserve necessarily better than having the quarterback competition open, but he deserved better than how he found out. And I think Thorne is also, you have to keep in mind, this is a guy who wasn't recruited by Mel Tucker's staff. They first tried to kind of replace him with Anthony Russo.
Oh, I remember Anthony.
Yeah. And then you get this situation, and he feels a little unwanted and a little underappreciated or unappreciated, and Auburn wanted him. So I understand the feeling of that, too. Like, this was a feeling of feeling wanted. Thorne definitely deserved better communication. Again, he didn't deserve to have the job handed to him. I think that's important. And so, whatever the circumstances, he hadn't performed well enough for that presumption. So while he might have been the best quarterback and won the job this year, he also might have only been better than the other guys at Michigan State because he was the one who was getting to play. 26 games of experience helps. You might be better because of those 26 games. Doesn't mean you're more talented. That's not really fair to the other guys. Just because you get somewhere first, that doesn't mean you don't get to go unchallenged. You've got to be a really special QB for that to sort of be understood. And to this point, that wasn't Thorne. And so even if these guys are no better or worse, that doesn't mean it wasn't time or wasn't fair to look at somebody else or consider somebody who might have a higher ceiling. Now, I think Thorne would have won the job, but I don't think he trusted it based on the way things were communicated to him and his history at MSU, and I get that. I also see Tucker's point. You're not going to be able to keep recruiting these four-star QBs if you don't give them a chance to compete and make that clear to them and probably make that publicly clear. It's just how it was communicated. Like, one of my beefs with this whole thing is I struggle with people when they don't communicate things well. Like, I think I could have talked to all the QBs there, and maybe you talk to them differently, and you sell them all a little differently, and you convince them, hey, Payton, we still really like you. We think you'll likely win this job, but it's only fair to these guys that we give them a look. That's what we promised them when we recruited them. If you were a younger player and there was an older guy who had done what you had done, we would do the same thing. Doesn't mean we think anything less of you. So this is what we're going to say. And if you do that, there's a chance Thorne feels a little more wanted. Maybe not. Maybe he leaves anyway.
Has Payton Thorne done anything to deserve that kind of respect and just give him the job?
26 games. He was the guy last year that, despite what Jay Johnson says about Noah Kim's readiness, when Payton Thorne was beat up and everybody was injured around him and things were going to shit, they didn't put anybody else in. They had him endure that.
Right.
I mean, he deserves some level of respect. Just anybody in your program.
Yeah, but you don't want to
give
give that kind of guy a job that hasn't really proved himself.
That's what I'm
a
saying.
guy like Noah Kim coming in, like, hey, listen, you're going to compete for the job if you do it. I just think that Tucker saw that, I don't know if I can win with this guy. So let's try to have a competition going into it. If you want to leave.
And that's what I'm saying.
It's big boy football. Let's go.
100% fair with that. But why don't saying that to Payton Thorne before you announce it's an open competition when you have a 2-year starter, I think is something that I would have done. And to my understanding, that wasn't happening. The take of the column to me was off the mark, but it wasn't anti-MSU bias. It doesn't mean folks with blue wall concern don't have real blue wall or blue curtain concerns, and
no,
sometimes they're merited, and certainly there are things that get brought up here that certainly don't seem even-handed in the coverage.
Welcome to the blue wall.
But this, to me, wasn't that. What is your first take?
I'm going to stick with this because I've been getting it constantly about this blue wall shit. I will agree. Rainer Saban, his column didn't really affect me the way it affected other Spartan fans, but you have to agree. There's something going on in the Detroit area where it is a little blue wallish. I know Rainer Saban's from Alabama or something. He has no ties to anything. But if you're trying to do well at your job and try to maybe move up the ranks or something, you have to kind of get people to click on your articles and stuff, your columns, right?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, part of being a columnist, and his job is partly that. It's a football columnist for them, is to know what the hardest part of the job or the key to the job is knowing what the column is at the right time. What right now do people want to read? Not in terms of what take they want to read, but what is the topic? And then they may disagree with your take. They should. People should be upset. We have this weird situation with Michigan and Michigan State where in a single, it's not like you just have the Lions. Everybody's on one page, right? Tigers. You rip the Tigers. You rip the Lions. People may agree or disagree with you, but it's all one fan base. Instead, it's two fan bases who hate each other. And so that's what creates this.
There's a lot of times where the coverage is just kind of like, really? Interesting. I don't sit there and claim blue wall. I know that there is a little bit of a blue wall, but it doesn't bother me like some other Michigan State fans. But I did go back and read some of your counterpoint columns that were from 2017?
Yeah.
Can we bring that back? That was awesome. By the way, Drew Sharp's column, I did read that. It didn't bother me either. Solari kind of wrote the same kind of thing that Drew Sharp. I mean, they both had the same kind of thing, which I read it. I didn't find it offensive. But.
So here's why the counter take column disappeared. And by the way, so what I used to do is through part of 2017, there was like a year and a half, or maybe, I don't know if it was that long, where at least during football season, I would take something somebody else wrote about MSU or something that I disagreed with and do a counter take column that Monday.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because Drew Sharp died like days after I wrote the last one about him, which sucked. But Drew was great though. Like Drew and I talked about that. There were a couple people, a couple columnists were offended who didn't have as thick skin as Drew. The bigger issue though, and I would bring it back if MSU got good again in football. MSU starting to suck became the problem because the counter take thing worked when there was a lot of coverage, not just locally and regionally, but nationally. And so you get all these takes on MSU and things like that.
But why don't you take a couple of hot takes that other writers have? I mean, I kind of enjoyed but having a discussion involving other writers. I mean, the newspaper industry is kind of dying. I mean, you guys need to kind of come up with something. And that was a great idea.
And I could just every time I saw something do it. But the idea was like it was a standing Monday feature. There will be weeks this year during football season where I will be the only columnist on the road covering Michigan State. And maybe somebody writes a column, but then the one other person writes a column, I have to automatically disagree. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard standing feature to do. It's a hard standing feature to do because Michigan State isn't good enough anymore, hasn't been good enough to get that sort of coverage.
What if you did it when you saw something that kind of irked you or, brought to your attention? I mean, you don't have to do it every week because that's the Skip Bayless formula where you got to, have a counterpoint just to have one.
The problem with this guy's take. Yeah, and I actually will write a column on the quarterback situation. We'll get into some of the stuff I just talked about without necessarily shitting on somebody else's take. And
like Lowe's. By the way, I really don't blame any of these guys except Lowe's of they're just trying to listen to their boss. They're trying to make a living, I believe. I don't know if they really have a vendetta against Michigan State.
What you
really sure.
What you don't want to do and you don't want to ever become somebody who you don't need to see the head or like with me, you always see couch colon, but a lot of they don't do that with a lot of places anymore. You don't want to get to the point where the headline is a giveaway who the writer is, because then this is clearly a so and so take. We've seen this shit.
Put Lowe's column in the middle and switch them around. Which one is what?
Yeah. So and you just want to avoid that place as a columnist where you're kind of your old hat and you're obvious, and that's sort of what it is.
All
so
right.
Yeah.
Well, right. I thought it was a great idea as for a column. So yeah, I guess I just don't have the anger in me about this. I believe that there is a blue wall. I do agree with people. I'm just not as passionate about it.
And it is,
I guess
the take that I would have on this is it is interesting. It will create a if Payton Thorne winds up having a stellar year and looking like a stellar quarterback, better than the level that we saw at Michigan State. It would lend credence to his case that he was beat up last year, that he's a better quarterback than we saw. And so it is interesting. There's no question about that. It does not create pressure on Mel Tucker. It does not, and it doesn't mean it was the wrong way. It was wrong to open that competition up. I just, from my knowledge of what Payton Thorne knew at the time that it was said, we're going to open this up, it blindsided him. And he blindsided them by leaving. And so all's fair in love and war. So that was your first take, right? So,
yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the blue wall.
My second take. You've been watching Lionel Messi mania with Inter Miami in the League's Cup?
I mean, I don't watch it, but it's always in my face.
It's everywhere.
Because he's everywhere, yeah.
So I love a lot of it. First of all, I love that the guy has shown up and performed to this level and took the team that was the last place team in MLS and won a joint competition with Liga MX, which is actually at the top, a stronger league than MLS, and MLS. And it was a lot of fun. I went to one of the games in Minnesota in this tournament. It was a lot. I love Liga MX games. Watch them all the time. I love that Messi has the right attitude, sharing the trophy last night. Though he has come with he has not acted too big for this, and yet he has performed at peak level. It's made us realize his greatness, and I love what his presence is doing for the MLS and soccer and all this. I just want to make sure people understand. Like, the thing I don't like about the way the League's Cup is set up, and there are no intentions of taking it to Mexico at any point. They made that real clear ahead of MLS this year, is home road in soccer is like home road in college basketball. It's like playing at Mackey Arena on a Sunday afternoon. That is the difference versus Breslin Center. That is how different. You can look at the point spreads when teams are home and road and the wins, losses. And so for an entire league, and I know there are lots of Mexican fans here, to come here and play for a month on the road and then act like this league's cup decided anything is bullshit. This whole thing was beautiful. It was set up for a great storyline. But the top 3 or 4 teams in Mexico, the Monterreys of the world and whatnot, are better than, and Monterrey in the third place game just played a lot of academy kids and other things like that and didn't even try anymore. But the top 3 or 4 teams in Mexico are just better than the MLS. They spend a lot more. Their depth of rosters are a lot better. They may not have a Messi, and it's not that MLS can't win a specific game, but if this was played in Mexico, there's a real chance you'd have an all-Mexico, all-Liga MX semifinal.
But isn't it about the players being intimidated, like the MLS, or they have so much respect for Messi that they just stay away from him?
Well, there's some
dribbles
stuff,
in. And
there's some stuff from Messi that's, players seem to, and they bolstered their club with a couple other key guys at the same time. And I love having Messi there. I'm looking forward to seeing if they can try to make the playoffs with him. I've watched a ton of their games. I've watched a ton of these games. But having watched Liga MX a lot of nights in my life, it bothered me, this concept that this is shown that MLS is at their level or what. It's not. It's not. This is the home road thing. This is an unfair competition. I'm all for it. It was a lot of fun. But let's just understand that this is like Michigan State having to play at Purdue every fucking time. That's the same deal with this. What is your second hot take?
We're dropping MFers now?
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
Well, football's almost back, Graham, but I'm watching the preseason, the Lions game, what was it, Saturday or whatever, the Jacksonville Jags and the Giants while we were off. And they keep mentioning on the broadcast about Ben Johnson, and pretty much they're saying that he's only going to be here for this year and he's going to be a hot commodity for head coaching jobs next season. And it got me to thinking, Dan Campbell's record is 17-28-1. Let me just throw out, I just want to just talk about this out loud, okay? This is a hot take. But if Ben Johnson, there's no NFL head coach salary cap, right? There's no salary cap. You can pay Ben Johnson if you want. Why is there no talk about bringing him back or making him the co-head coach or something? But because, by the way, let's just say they go 9-8, maybe miss the playoffs, but the offense looked undefeated, looked unbelievable. And we're pissed off because we missed the playoffs again, and our offense looked great, and we let people down. And there's a couple mental errors going on with Dan Campbell throughout the season. I get the whole thing. Grit is his whole deal. But why are we just all of a sudden okay with Ben Johnson leaving? We finally have a guy, and I thank him for coming back, because usually guys that get hot like that, he could have taken a couple of jobs he was offered. Yeah. I'm just saying, but at least if you don't want to make him the head coach, right? I know that sounds crazy. But why can't we talk about paying him
head coach money?
Right.
Well, and is he the Mike Martz, and you really need to get rid of Dick Vermeil? Like what? Well, that's the question. Like is I understand that Dan Campbell's the culture, but if Ben Johnson is the brains, you got to have them both, and you got to figure out a way to do that. I'm with you on this. It's especially when you're like a lot of what Jared Goff's success, we don't know how much is tied to what Ben Johnson is doing with him.
Right.
And the biggest fear with the Detroit Lions right now, if they had like, an Aaron Rodgers or a peak Russell Wilson or whatever, you wouldn't worry as much about the offensive coordinator. The biggest fear with the Lions is they're going to get really good, reach a plateau that they can't get past with Jared Goff. Realize that, then have to pivot to another quarterback, wasting years in their window while they try to do it, and become the Indianapolis Colts and just miss the window. That's the thing. Like you're getting into the window here. So when you bet on Goff,
get many windows.
Yeah, and you bet on Goff. So and if Ben Johnson is part of that, I don't care what you got to call him. I don't care what his title is. You make the salary, you keep him, you call him the head coach in waiting.
I mean, Sheila Hamp, this is what you've been waiting for, to make a decision so you can get the fan base behind you. I just don't believe, they employ Rod fucking Wood, for God's sake, so I don't trust any of the Ford family to make any kind of decisions to that magnitude. But I just want to, just hearing about it just nonchalantly, oh, yeah, he's going to be, this is probably his last year here. I just don't know why we have to just all of a sudden, agree to that. Oh, okay, I guess he leaves. If he's one of the top commodity coaches, what has Dan Campbell really shown you so far? And again, I can say, if they miss the playoffs or they're 9-8. So,
yeah,
just wanted to say it out loud. It was just a discussion.
It's
people get pissed. I don't know.
No,
I love the culture. I love the team. Watching that team in preseason, I know it sounds ridiculous, but there was a different kind of like something in the air with the guys that just wanted to hit and play. And I know that's all Dan Campbell and the way he has the guys. So maybe it's a complete stupid take, but I know for sure there's no salary cap for coaches. So we could offer Ben Johnson some decent money to maybe keep him away from other teams.
I think that's I think you can do it in title. You can do it in promises. You may not be able to do it entirely because I don't think you're going to fire Dan Campbell, because he has created a culture I think is pretty damn cool.
Sure.
But you got to make a guy feel like he's almost 1A and 1B here.
But it also, it's a long season, and week to week things change, and you just never know what happens with the team after the season if they don't make the playoffs. But I hope it's not the case.
All right, my third hot take. Getting old sucks.
Yeah.
I had my first old man injury this past weekend.
You've had too many donuts, mate.
I got hurt in bed the other day. Not doing anything fun. Just propping myself up to reach for my water cup.
Damn.
I like my elbow. I feel like the bed is so soft in that part. It just gave way a little bit there, and it felt like my shoulder blade tore through some of my back muscles.
Jesus.
Toward my spine. It was the most painful thing in the middle of the night. Plus, you're so damn tired at that point. I just kind of rolled over, suffered through it, went back to sleep, had trouble getting out of bed. I feel okay now. I played basketball today. I'm okay, but it was the first, never before have I leaned over to get water in the middle of the night and has my shoulder blade torn through my muscles. Or felt like it.
Sounds
it
pretty
like
dramatic.
It is. It was just
you played basketball today.
It's just painful. It's just it's just this gnawing existence back there. It didn't lose any motion or anything like that. But anyway,
you could have just said you had two takes.
Getting old sucks. That's my take. What is your third take?
Buenos tardes. It is time
I've been
for
there,
the
though.
Detroit Tigers gambling update with Gramanito Couch and Jason Nick.
All right, going to the Tigers game tomorrow night, Graham, against the Cubs. I don't think I'm gambling. I have to gamble when I go to the game, but after tomorrow night's game, I don't know if I'm really going to gamble on this team much more. I got to say, I'm really excited about next year. Carpenter, Riley Green, Torque is starting to hit. And plus with the pitching staff, I think can be underrated next season. So I think there's a lot of plus going on. Maybe if you can pick up a bat or two. Javi Baez is, I just love Matt Shepard's reaction when Javi Baez makes a play. And then he throws the ball into the dirt outside of Torkelson.
He was phenomenal today.
Yeah,
defensively, and so was the whole team. It was a really inspiring defensive.
And you have to give him credit when he does well. But it's the $22 million. And by the way, the Miggy thing, I swear to God, it's taking a piece of my soul.
Yeah,
every day. And the commercial about the fucking bats. Who's buying a $200 Miggy Cabrera commemorative bat? I'm sure there's some people out there. But any listeners, can you please show me that the bat that you purchased? And there's there's a live read every time he's up at bat. It's like, Jesus Christ.
I will say, is somebody who owns a Bobby Higginson autographed bat, I don't really feel like I have a place to talk. Well, it's worth less.
Hit an intruder?
It's worth less because of the signature. I remember when I got it, it was at a church auction in 1999, and I got it for $35. It's an $80 nice Major League wooden bat. I got it for $35. But the signature probably makes it worth $35. Bobby Higgins
got ripped off.
Yeah, it's not.
Put that on Facebook Marketplace.
See what comes back for it.
All right.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm with you on the excitement about the team. I think I kind of want them to finish second. I know that's not anything big, but to be ahead of Cleveland.
But they're bringing up Parker Meadows, and I'm sure there's something with his contract. But I felt like when you watch this team, they can compete. Why don't we just try to compete with a shit Central and make a couple moves and get some? I don't know. It's just. Why wait for Parker Meadows to come up now?
I really want them to re-sign Eduardo Rodriguez. To me, why not? Why not have a guy? Look what he did today.
If he wants to be here, yeah.
Yeah, if he wants to be there. Again, you screwed up with the communication and everything at the trade deadline. The guy says he wants to be there.
He just has to be faithful on the road.
There's no salary cap. Again, no salary. This isn't like the Pistons in a few years having to choose which of these young players can eat up a giant percentage of their salary cap, which affects how you can compete. If paying him, $23 million a year meant, shit, you can't pay another guy, then it'd be like, no, well, but it's not a great free agent class. He is a guy who seems to be fairly healthy. He seems to be like, I don't know, he just seems to be somebody who could really be
he's
nice
a little bit
core
of
of
a
that
head
rotation.
case. That's all. I mean, he left 3 months.
That was last year, and
I understand,
whatever.
but he's still, there's issues there, and I understand. It depends on what kind of contract he wants. I mean, if he's looking for a big deal from Detroit, I mean, do they, like you said, there's no salary cap, so why not pay it? By the way, bonus, you mentioned the NBA. I saw today that they're having a mid-season tournament, and they're trying to be like soccer.
Yeah.
I had no idea this was happening.
This is like 2 weeks new.
By the way, I understand that, but who gives a shit? Like, I get the players, they win $500,000 each. Guys that are making $65 million, James Harden sitting there, he's not going to play for the general manager. It's just like, I used to love the NBA, but I don't know what the pros are when you talk pros and cons of this in-season tournament.
Right, and the problem with it is they're trying to do it after soccer, but the thing about soccer is all of these tournaments that are secondary to the league they're in involve teams that aren't in the league they're in. So, for example, in like the Premier League, those teams will play in the FA Cup, which is like every team in England. So the littlest clubs, like the second club in Lansing, Michigan, will get a chance to be
a gift card.
We'll get a gift card. We'll get a chance to be in the tournament. That's kind of cool. The EFL Cup is that's a little redundant, but nonetheless, it's all the top 4 divisions of English football, and then you have the Champions League. You have but it's you're not playing the same teams. It's not like the Premier League goes, what we should do in the middle of the Premier League season? Do a tournament of just Premier League teams. Let's do that. It's dumb. I get why they're trying to create interest early in the season when people are into
but
mostly
will it
football.
Work?
And no, I don't think so.
Right, that's what I mean. I mean, if it works for some people, I'm not that big into the NBA regular season playoffs. I'm all over, but this mid-season thing on it,
it's not.
It's sad.
It's not ideal. You want to dig into these listener hot takes?
Of course, Eric Schultz up first. Number 1, I love the Friday night opener for MSU, but they should come up with a way to make tailgating start earlier than 3:30. 2, speaking of short tailgates, MSU shouldn't wait till 11 to open the lots for a 5 p.m. Washington game. When you take a game away from us and it's mid-September, 5 p.m. needs to be considered afternoon, not night. 3, the MSU-Maryland game will be the most important game of the season.
There's a good argument for number 3. Number 1, Maryland is, I think, going to be decent. They were last year. They beat Michigan State last year. 8-win team, starting quarterback coming back. When they have collapsed historically, it has not been in September. So, and it's the Big Ten opener, like getting off to a decent start there, setting a tone with Iowa on the road the following week. Who knows what will happen with Washington? Like if you talk about a pendulum swinging between bowl eligibility and not, or having a winning season and not, that very much could be the game. To the tailgate thing, you're probably right here. It's interesting because MSU has a lot of games now that are 5 p.m., 3:34, because they're not. Prime time is now noon apparently, or 7:30, but it's not the 3:30 game that we grew up with because of Fox and their big noon bullshit. So that does create, and I didn't realize that about the tailgates. It's something to ask about and look into. 11 a.m. though for a 5 p.m. game, 6 hours. Doesn't that seem like enough to tailgate?
For me, yes.
Yeah,
but I'm old and I don't drink anymore, so it isn't as impactful for me.
Now, Friday night, it sounds like he's saying the tailgate starts at 3:30 for a 7 o'clock game. That is not a lot, but part of that is because it's when they close the campus. And I guess if you're going to have a Friday game, that should be one of the things you do is campus closes at noon. Cars got to be out of lots. Because the problem is it's like an open campus, and all of a sudden all these areas have to be available for tailgating. So I get the hiccup there. But, yeah, it seems like they could open it a little earlier.
I mean, they're selling beer now, right? I mean, we just need 4 hours to tailgate now. Dominic, next, number 1, Couch. I love you. You're my favorite. You're great at your job. You're so talented. You were extremely thoughtful. But, bro, got to stop the spin zone and just admit the blue wall exists. Nobody will get fired and nobody will die either in case you had a case of the tum-tums. 2, Graham says it's not fair to judge Tucker yet. Rainer Saban says Payton Thorne throwing a touchdown pass is an indictment on Mel Tucker and his entire ancestry. Graham, it's not fair to come after Rainer with blue wall stuff. He's an even better father than he is a journalist. 3, There's nothing that makes me laugh harder than the Scott Doctorman making his annual appearance on this show and implying, if not declaring, that the Big Ten West is just as good as the East. Then seeing the East raw dog them 62-12 in the title game. Stick to Caitlin Clark, bro. And everybody's favorite bonus take. You probably think I'm being too hard on you, Graham, but I'm over your bi-weekly Camp David trips. Maybe if you devote your entire life to writing columns about Shep's horrendous commentating, I cut you a break and not hold your feet to the fan.
Appreciate you, Dominic.
Welcome to the blue wall.
Solid shit as always. There's no question.
At least you left his in this week.
That's right. Got him out accidentally. There's no question with Scott that he is, while a very astute writer and thinker and somebody who covers the league very well, he does definitely lean Big Ten West and Iowa. He definitely sees things from that perspective. And he has some data to back it up, but
Cornwall.
Not all of it, for sure.
JD next. Number 1, Katon Houser will establish himself as the clear quarterback of the future, whether he starts at the beginning of the season or not. 2, Nate Carter finishes the year with more touchdowns than Kenneth Walker had in 2021. 3, MSU beats Washington and or Michigan this year.
Nate Carter is the guy you hear a ton of buzz about, and they have not held back on that buzz. Now, they haven't it's not bluster, it's not too much, but they're not careful with that, I don't think. In other words, I think they really think he's going to be good. And he played very little last year. He was really good in the times he got to play, and then he got hurt and he was out. So I don't really know what they have there. I haven't seen him play myself, and but I am probably more curious, other than the quarterback position, more curious about Nate Carter maybe than anybody else on Michigan State's football team.
AI God next with just 1. MSU will win more games than Washington this year. All right.
Well, I mean, yeah. Washington could be overblown. They got the quarterback back. It's not the same team. Who knows? And if MSU gets to 8 wins, Washington could be at 8 wins, and I really think MSU is going to have to beat Washington for that thing to be the case. But it's I guess it's possible.
Benjen next. Number 1, this year's record means the least for MSU in 2 decades. Tuck's not getting fired. Won't affect the build. Just enjoy the wins. 2, the Rolling Stones was Spartan Stadium's biggest non-football event. And 3, I just gave a big PowerPoint presentation at work. The first slide said, core foundation, man, grit.
Hold on. It's our core foundation, man, grit.
It's a hell of a first slide.
My mouse kind of didn't slide there.
I remember the Rolling Stones concert at Spartan Stadium,
and
1994.
U2.
Yeah.
U2 was pretty badass there. I didn't go to either one. But
I babysat on the night of the Rolling Stones for a couple that went in 1994. So
the fact that you remember that is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember I remember a lot of weird shit, just not like last week.
So what did you do while the kid was like running around? Did you make prank calls or?
No, I would, and I don't.
Did you look around the house?
Kid was probably like 3 at the time, 94.
Jeez.
Two, maybe. We just hung out, and then kid went to bed, and I don't know. The kid. I'd be a great babysitter when the kid got a little older because I was the babysitter that let them eat ice cream, then get in their pajamas, and then as soon as their parents pulled up, race upstairs and fake like you've been asleep for an hour. I was that guy. So people loved me when I was like.
So you were the favorite.
I was the favorite, but I didn't do it that much later. You're like a 19-year-old guy would be like home from college. Yeah, it's just
not many dudes were
babysitting. Yeah, no, it was
bucking the trend for decades, coaching 9-year-olds. You don't have a child,
6-year-olds, but no, it was the thing was, there were kids that I had babysat when I was like 14 years old that coming home from college would be like a treat if I came over and played and hung out.
A treat to who?
The kids
sure?
loved it. They seemed to like it.
No,
I enjoyed it
because they probably heard around town that you could eat ice cream and stay up late.
Yeah, and they paid you a ton because they thought it was a real inconvenience, and it really wasn't. I didn't have enough friends for that not to be an inconvenience. I didn't have anything else to do, so
no ladies coming over.
It worked out just fine. I think we missed Deepwater Connoisseur.
Sorry, Deepwater. Where you at? Benjen, Deepwater. My hot take is that Michigan State should put out evidence of what happened in the visitors' locker room in 2018.
It would be interesting if what happened there and the way Michigan's football team apparently destroyed, defamed, whatever you want to say, the locker room. If that had happened after this last year, like if
I'm not talking about Michigan.
If that was something that it's the order in which things happened, and certainly it is something that, again, glass houses and
when are you getting this tattoo? Don't you owe a tattoo for some blue wall?
I don't owe a tattoo at this point. There's not been enough. We got people claiming that the latest column is a blue wall, and I don't think that is. Like, people are missing they're not making their presentation correctly. They can disagree with the column, but that was not blue wall this week.
All right.
You think it was?
No, there is a blue wall thing, but I don't blame Rainer Saban. David Cox next. Number 1, Spartans finished 10-2, losing at Iowa and Ohio State. 2, there is most assuredly an ugly blue wall. I don't understand how it's even debatable.
You know, and to be fair to people who are, so there are two ways to look at this. One, Michigan State fans and people who are very pro MSU who see a blue wall are also looking through life through green-colored glasses, so they see the slights. The flip side of that is I also don't read the entire Detroit Free Press every day. I don't read many of the Michigan articles. I don't have a full perspective, I'll be honest. I just know who the writers are, their priorities, some of the editors, and how much work that some of those places have gone at times to be equal, even when equal wasn't deserved. So, anyway. I will admit to a blue curtain because of a couple columnists who lean
Welcome to
toward
the blue
Michigan.
wall.
Yeah.
Interesting. Matt C. next. Number 1, Couch hates successful people. Aspires to be average and could run the LSJ better, but doesn't. Graham might be a communist. LOL. 2, despite Graham's insufferable denial of the blue wall, I still appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Matt. Yeah. No, there's
it is insufferable.
My
Because
denial.
you just said that there is like a curtain or something.
Well, yeah, just mean there's some people that definitely. I mean, Mitch Albom and Wojo definitely wind up at a lot more Michigan games and care more about Michigan things than Michigan State, and that's not. I don't think I'm stepping out of bounds.
I think people are
that.
talking about the Dr. Anderson coverage and some things that just seem like they're like the Harbaugh suspension. Now he's not even going to be suspended. It's just.
Are they not covering that? They're covering that.
I'm not saying they're not. I was just.
Yeah, and granted, things that happen in the summer, I don't see as much because I frankly don't give a shit. But it's I shouldn't say that. We'll fix that in post. Take that.
Send that to the LSJ. Phil, next. Number 1, if the media is right and the Spartans have a lot more depth and talent, then the over is a no-brainer. 2, the Leagues Cup championship game was awesome. 3, I'll be worried if we don't hit on a few remaining football recruits.
So it's not really about the media being right and Michigan State having more depth and talent than the over 5.5 wins is a no-brainer. It's about the coaches being right. I mean, what's being said is basically what's being regurgitated from them, and some of it is obvious. Like when you look at the defensive line and the offensive line, you can just look at the number of healthy guys and who they are, and there is more depth. That's without question, and there is, I think, an upgrade in talent. And so the idea that I think I've said this before. If I were advising one way or another, like you had to have a bazooka to the head and you had to bet the over-under, I would take the over on Michigan State football 5.5. I don't feel great about it, though, because the thing is you can have a lot of depth and talent, but do you have a quarterback? We don't know that yet. And how ready is that quarterback? And even if one of these young guys winds up being a really good quarterback, does it take them a minute to grow into it and they lose a game or two at points in the season that they wouldn't have lost otherwise?
There's a kicker, right?
And we still don't know if they've
seen a kicker.
They have one on the roster. We still don't know if that person's reliable. So there are things you can upgrade a lot of places and have things not in place that cost you games. You go back to 2016, and Michigan State is a 6-6 team if they had a good quarterback, and they went 3-9, and there were a lot of issues. But just a good quarterback alone is 6-6, and so
And what you just mentioned, I mean, people ask what we think the record is going to be. And when all of those unknowns you mentioned, it's like, how am I supposed to give a final record? I don't know what's going on. I don't even know who the kicker is.
Yeah.
All right. Ken Shue next. Number 1. First time 2 former Pac-12 teams meet in the Big Ten football championship game. We are going back to divisions. 2, DirecTV announced that they will add the NFL Red Zone to the sports pack at no additional cost. If others follow suit, it will eat into YouTube's Sunday ticket subscriptions.
Yeah, I don't know what the contractual deal is with this. I do know one of the big things that's just happened is that there's a commercial license now for like Peacock to be able to have that streamed in bars. Now, whether bars subscribe to it, who knows? But that helps bars in Michigan and places where in Big Ten country where you're going to have games on Peacock, and that was an important problem that was an issue until about a week ago. So that sounds like that's going to be.
If the game is on Peacock, can you go into the bar and say, hey, do you guys have
Peacock?
Play the drop.
And depending on the bar, the problem bars had with this was, and I was going to do a story on this before this deal a week ago, because the problem was you could rig it so you had one TV on Peacock, or you had with your own personal account in a bar if you're a bar owner or a general manager, or you could put with the Fire Sticks or 5 or 6 separate accounts. What the problem they were finding out, and they learned this through other sports, is they wouldn't all be timed the same if they weren't all in one account or in one setup through what they'll have now. So
the bars just get it.
Yeah,
what is all this shit?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So you'd be in there for the Michigan State Washington game, and one TV would be 30 seconds ahead of the other. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for a bar. So that was part of the issue. Even if they rigged it, which wouldn't have been legal, but some of them would have done, it would not have been a great viewing experience. And so it sounds like they'll at least have that opportunity. I don't know what the cost is. I still need to look into that.
Fart soup next. Number 1, Dantonio knew COVID was coming. That's hot. 2, the Rube caused the Elsie Dam to collapse. And 3, health issues are ass. This pod makes things better. Appreciate you.
This is the hot take of the week winner. All hail fart soup.
Maybe it needs to be a little shorter. But
well, I like it. No, I think it's perfect. It's perfect.
I hope you're on the mend soon there.
Yeah.
Fart soup. Sorry to hear that.
Fart soup will win a gift card of their choice to either Front 43 and Cask & Company, Midtown Brewing Company here in downtown Lansing, or Groovy Donuts. I love this Dantonio knew COVID was coming because while hot, you just wonder like if Dantonio, for all the ideas that he was out of steam and everything, was just watching like cable news and the shit's already in China and everything, and he's going, oh my God, like this is the worst. I need to get out. I don't know if anybody knows what's going on. There's a ancient dam in Elsie near where you live in Ovid that just collapsed and is causing some issues, I think.
I don't know. There's no water headed our way. I think the thing's like 100 and some years old, so it's about, I like how they had to have an emergency meeting, though. I'm like, the thing is like 125 years old. You just expect it to deliver. You don't have a backup plan. Like, here's 3 things for when that fucking thing breaks.
Yeah, no,
blows my mind.
I read the story too. I was like, oh my God, damn, is Jason okay? And it's like, well, no homes are threatened. It's like, okay, this is whatever.
That's what I was saying. I saw that and I was like, what the fuck happened? But all right, Kurt Wisniewski next. Number 1, the Lions will finish 8-9 and win the North. 2, foul tips like Lars Nootbaar took would eliminate an opportunity to have kids. Ouch. 3, Katon Hauser will be the starter.
I didn't see this foul tip.
Oh, yeah, it's brutal. It's not as bad. I think Akil Badu, he took one right into the nuts. But, yeah.
Is Lars, was he the batter, the catcher,
He's
umpire?
the batter.
He's the batter, okay.
Yeah.
No. So, all right, the Lions, I wanted to ask you this from Kurtz. The Lions go 8-9 and win the North because it winds up being one of those really bad divisions. It's sort of the central division in baseball right now in the American League.
Can't happen.
And we've seen it. But they win a playoff game.
Oh.
Would you prefer
right.
Would you prefer that?
It's not July, Coach.
I know, sorry. Would you prefer that to them going like 12-5, looking like they really turned a corner, having a bye, and then losing their first playoff game?
I think I'd take the bye.
Would you?
Yeah, without knowing that we were going to lose the.
No, I'm saying, but they would lose
after the bye. Yeah, well, I understand that. But to answer your question, I mean, 8 and 9. What went on during the season? Were there injuries? I mean, to pass on a playoff win, I know that sounds stupid, but I feel 12 and 5 and having a bye. How did you lose in that playoff game after the bye? Right? I mean,
well, that's the thing. If they wound up being the number 1 seed and getting a bye,
right?
The level of team you're playing after the bye is pretty good. It's different than the wild card round.
And
too,
8 and 9, it's like, come on, let's have a winning season. Let's go. I know it's 9 and 8 last year, but Gary Libka next. All 4 Detroit professional teams are trending up and have the best leadership this millennium.
Is that true? All 4. Okay, so I mean, I do believe the Tigers are over the worst of it. Do they have the best leadership of this millennium, though? The Tigers, I don't know that we know that yet. And
Scott
then
Harris, is he going to hire someone?
And what is he going to be? Right? Yeah, I don't. And the Lions, I would say that's probably correct. The Pistons, I would say that's the problem is the Pistons this millennium were champions. So while that tailed off, I don't think. I mean, I do agree everybody's trending up, and that's nice. The Red Wings are trending up.
Can't get any worse for the Pistons.
The Red Wings won Stanley Cups this millennium, so I don't know.
But I think they're trending.
They're all trending.
These,
the first part of that is correct. The idea that they all have the best leadership of this millennium is more hot take. Yeah,
I'm scared to say yes on that one. Professor next. MSU football ends the season with a top 50 offense and a top 50 defense, but still 6 losses. Bonus. Tent camping for an extended period is hell.
Yeah, more than 2 nights is probably
no. Not when you're our age. If you're over 40, fuck that.
Well, no. Yeah, and so my wife, like, she views tent camping as like a Fairfield Inn, something, a lower end Marriott. So we don't camp. We don't camp. I used to camp as a kid. I camped as a young adult. Didn't mind it. Didn't mind a couple nights. Like I can do
waking up in your own sweat.
2 nights. Yeah, you wake up. Oh, the sun's just beating through the tent. Yeah, like
you need to take like 2 days off when you get back so you can recover.
And you got to go someplace that has running water, showers, toilets, all that stuff. It can't be like truly.
How is that even a question?
Yeah.
If there's no RV, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I need air conditioning.
Okay. Yeah.
Chris Eastlick. Poor Chris. Chris Eastlick. Lions severe weather theme takes. I forgot about this. Number 1. I'd rather be kicked in the junk 20 times before cutting into a Lions game or another sporting event for severe weather again, unless it's Tottenham. 2,
absolutely.
Frustration is understandable, but personally attacking meteorologists who are doing what they require to do is juvenile. They might require a look in the mirror, especially the ones who use their work email addresses. Trust me, we'd rather be watching the game than deal with the blowback. 3, we also wish in 2023 that we could cut into only areas that are being affected, but that's not the way it works. That frustration is totally understandable. And bonus, football is back. And for all you tornado donut needs, your tornado, donut needs, go to Groovy Donuts. You're welcome, Graham.
I appreciate you. Yeah, no,
dude, I forgot about this. Now we had it worse. We didn't have. I would have loved to have Eastlick.
Yeah,
on there during the game. I mean, it's a preseason game. Who gives a shit? We had constant every 10 minutes. Those things, the dial-up internet with the full screen. Every 10 minutes, I had to jump and lunge for the remote for the dog. It's just like, what are we fucking doing?
So here's my only issue, and I understand that this is like federal law that they do this. It's for and first of all, it's a preseason Lions game. You're welcome in some ways.
Yeah, but you're just saying the same shit over. Did you ask?
Yes. No, my problem isn't what happened. It can be frustrating. I get it. My problem isn't that the weather people have to intercede.
Yeah.
My issue is sometimes the tone of them. What they need to understand, and Eastlick clearly understands, is this is inconveniencing a lot of people. This sucks for a lot of people who are trying to watch something else. And so that needs to be in the tone. Like, I am really sorry. I have to be here. This is what's important. Some of these guys get on there and they're like, it's fired up. This is my moment. It's a freaking storm. Yay. And it's just like
Provenzano.
It's like, I didn't say that.
Oh.
And so people that drive people nuts. You have to be, it's like Dantonio when he said pride comes before the fall and it'll never be over. You have to meet the fan base where it is. You have to reflect their tone and their mood. And if you're a meteorologist, do your job. It's a federally mandated deal that you do your job. That's part of the deal with getting airtime.
What's the mandate, though?
But don't. It's a public safety deal.
So they have to go on and just repeat themselves
for as long. Yeah, I guess.
Bullshit.
I guess. Yeah.
It's 2023, dude. I don't want to take any of their whatever. How long have they been doing that, or that's a law or a rule? You break in during a commercial break. You tell people what's going on, and then you have a scroll at the bottom saying take cover if you're in these areas. What's harder than that? Get off the screen. I mean, I don't know.
All right.
What are we doing?
Yeah, no. I will say this. If this sort of thing frustrates you, pisses you off, and you need comfort in your life, you need something that feels good, something you can wrap yourself in, something you can just wear and feel great, or get outside while there's a tornado nearby and Eastlick's yelling at you through the TV. Muskox flannels, right? And Muskox also offers bundles for customers like shirts and hats with flannels. And if you go to gomuskox.com/caw, you can create your own bundle experience. That's a different savings than our promo code one. That's separate, but there's some really cool savings, up to like $50 on a purchase, and some outstanding offerings there. A great way to get a flannel and a hat and some cool stuff as we get into fall and football season. Again, gomuskox.com/caw.
And by the way, don't get mad at the meteorologists. Don't go find them on Facebook like a fucking weirdo. It's not their fault. But you think that Chris Eastlick would have won? He's a sports fan. He knows that he shouldn't be on there, but he has to. Get mad at the National Weather Service or the station or whoever makes them still do it this archaic bullshit way. All right. Tim Van Lowe next. Number 1, Caden Hauser starts from day 1. 2, MSU starts 5-1. And 3, Nate Carter is the next Kenneth Walker, the third.
So to the number 3, the one thing I will say about the trying to be the next Kenneth Walker, that is part of what Ephraim Reed, the running backs coach, had hurt them last year, is all these guys wanted to be the next him. And some of the little things that you need to do in terms of being lined up exactly the right amount of inches away from, whatever, all that stuff. They hitting the right hole, all those sort of things. They were trying to be the next Kenneth Walker. So Nate Carter is great just of his own nature. That's fine. But they got to get away from trying to do too much and just have a better line and create things that way. 5-1 would be – I can't even imagine the buzz around this place in Michigan State is 5-1.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be – I mean, because keep in mind, that'll be the 5-1 is after the Rutgers game is the midpoint. So it would be 4-1 or maybe out of – and really to get to 5-1, you're going to have to beat 2 of Washington, Iowa, and Maryland. It's feasible. I'm just saying it's a tall order. I think 4-2 at 6 games would be a really good start.
Spartan 18770 next. Number 1, the 3 most important football questions heading into the season. Does MSU have a quality Big Ten cornerbacks? Will we get consistent play from our kicker and punter? And will the coaches be able to improve on their in-game decision-making? 2, to actually get a 5-star recruit, MSU will need to show that it can win on a consistent level. New Year's 6 bowls or college football playoff. Until then, we will always be the bridesmaid and never the bride. 3, any West Coast recruit that wants to play in the Big Ten will never commit to the West Coast teams. If you're in the Big Ten, you will be playing an East Coast schedule, so you might as well play on an East Coast team. The travel schedule will be brutal for those 4 teams.
So to point number 2 here, the idea that until they wind up in a New Year's 6 bowl or college football playoff, they're not going to get any 5 stars. The counter to that is that they've gotten 5 stars when in the past throughout the last 30 years of the program when that program hasn't been there. I mean, T.J. Duckett joined a program that was still very much on the rise, or actually might have been when he committed. They weren't in a bowl game that year, and Charles Rogers, right, guy commits when after Nick Saban left, and they weren't. They were in the Citrus Bowl, and there have been some of the Dantonio 5 stars. They joined that before they really reached their pinnacle. So I don't know that that's necessarily true. What they need is, I think, 5 stars. It helps if 5 stars are local. It helps if 5 stars are in the state of Michigan. And if you sort of look at the history of 5 stars that Michigan State's gotten when they have not been an elite program, that has helped. So they need some 5 stars to be local and to win those battles.
Matt Boone next. Number 1, MSU defense will only be as good as the safeties allow them to be. 2, waiting for football to start is treacherous. I think it's treacherous when people, the 70 days away and you get like 50 days away. Now it's like, I'm okay now. Now it's going to be here, next week. So
Matt had a third take that I apparently cut off. But Matt, I read it, and I will take care of you. The defense only be as good as the safeties allow them to be. It's an interesting area because it was where they fell apart a lot last year. The line that the coaches are saying this year, and whether this is where they're really at or not, is that last year they were so dependent on Xavier Henderson that when he was gone, they really didn't know how to deal with that. And now that he's just hasn't been there for the spring and everything, it's helped everybody become more of a communicator. They're not so reliant on one guy, and they're in a better place overall. We'll see whether that's actually true. I do think they've got some good young talent there. How ready they are will absolutely have be a factor in where the season goes.
Call me Al next. 3 things that occurred over the last few weeks that confirm I'm old. Number 1, not liking the fact booze will be sold at Spartan Stadium. 2, my oldest daughter submitted to college applications. And 3, realized I liked Everybody Loves Raymond.
First of all, Everybody Loves Raymond is a good show. I like Everybody Loves Raymond.
It was a good show, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it when it was on, and I was still a teenager, early 20s when it was on. So, I mean, not just because he's a sports columnist. And
now you do a Kermit the Frog. Do you do a Ray Romano?
I don't do a great impression. It would be bad if I even tried. But there are some, I live within 0.3 miles of my mother, go on walks every day, and the Romano lives, they live across the street, and they come in all the time. We did update the door code on our house at one point and did not share it with my mom.
Wow.
Because the old there, she was letting herself in occasionally. It was like...
I didn't know you had a door code.
Well, yeah, it's like a keypad. It's a lock. It's like a keypad lock. And
nice.
It was getting a little too, why is she just in the house without knowing she was going to be here sort of deal. So I really, but no, I love Everybody Loves Ray Romano.
I think a Ray Romano impression would have been less painful there. Just say.
Yeah.
Carl, my lock, next. Number 1, this MSU football team shows parallels to the 2017 team and finishes 9-3 in the regular season. 2, MSU hockey takes another leap under Nightingale in year 2 and not only makes the tournament, but wins at least a game. Plus, 5,000 seems like a value to win the Natty, by the way. 3, there is 0 reason to watch the Tigers until Miggy's final game. Yeah.
I think there's more. I've enjoyed them this series. I think it's fun to watch because the thing the Tigers at least have now that they didn't have in previous years is they have some guys who are part of the foundation, right? So they're going to be around. So it's fun to watch Riley Green. It's fun to watch Kerry Carpenter.
Pick the stick. Valleys. How fun? What more fun do you need? John Keating's leading that or something.
The MSU hockey season, I do think I always enjoy, just from a coverage standpoint, really enjoy when another team besides men's basketball and football creates a buzz at MSU, whether it be women's basketball or hockey or something. And that this hockey season is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to have a third team kind of to dig into and cover, and I think people are going to be pretty fired up for that. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Suburban Spartan Dad next. Number 1, Jaden Reed leads all rookie receivers in touchdowns this year. 2, the lack of AC in Europe is ass. Visiting my in-laws, and it's 94 degrees every day. I don't care if the buildings are all stone and built to maximize airflow. I need the Mel Tucker sweat towel on deck at all times.
Couple things. I've dealt with this a little bit. It's amazing. They deal with heat waves in parts of Europe pretty much every year now, and yet
no AC.
Many of these buildings don't have AC, and wherever I stay, I always make sure has AC. Mel Tucker doesn't get to own the sweat towel, by the way. I've been using a sweat towel for like 13 years and realized it from a buddy who's been doing it for 20 years. And Mel Tucker is, he may use the sweat towel too, but it's not a Mel Tucker sweat towel.
Wait, so your buddy did it way before you, and then all of a sudden you did it, and he's like, "Hell yeah, bro! Welcome to the towel club."
Well, I just thought it was smart. Like I forget where we were one day, but it was just like, he's a bald-headed guy, and so he was like, he would, just dab his head, keep the sweat. I was like, that's really smart for somebody who sweats a lot. My wife does not love when I carry a sweat towel around all that much, but
By the way, Jaden Reed, if he thinks that, sprinkle a little 50-1 action on him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year.
It's not a horrible play.
He's going to be the third receiver in Green Bay, right?
If he still had Aaron Rodgers, I think it'd be.
Jordan Love. Everybody's raving about him. Who knows? Little American champ next. Number 1, while Noah Kim is the better QB, Payton Hauser still gets a lot of the looks this year as 185-pound Kim gets banged up at times. 2, in 5 years, there are no conferences for football as it consolidates into a super league with divisions, which oddly enough brings back the old Big Ten.
I do think they're going to give Payton Hauser a look early on, and I think Kim will probably be the starter.
Especially with the offensive line, who knows? I mean,
well, and you want to have, first of all, I think it's always best, if there isn't a giant separation between the two, it's only fair to let some of that separation become clear in game activity. And also, whoever your backup is, if it's Payton Hauser, you want that guy to get some PT, especially if you can get a lead against Central Michigan or Richmond. Or even have some scripted ideas where Hauser comes in for a drive in the second quarter of those games when it's still a competitive game, and I think that stuff makes sense. You can't do it at the expense of winning, though, and so if there's really a big dip where Hauser isn't ready, then it can be a little dicey.
Matt Venny next. Number 1, this will be Jim Harbaugh's last season at Michigan. 2, the Iowa players who bet on their own team should only be punished if they bet the over. 3, in 50 years, we will find out that watching preseason football gives you cancer.
That would be a blow.
Wow, what a hot take.
I've always thought preseason football is dangerous for your fantasy teams. If you're having like a fantasy draft with a group of people on a night that there's a game on, because whoever does well in that game tends to get drafted.
J.K. Dobbins 2 years ago went out the first or second play of the first preseason game, and I drafted him.
There was a year that the Cleveland Browns just demolished the Detroit Lions in a preseason game, and at the end of the night, I looked at my roster. I had like 6 Cleveland Browns. I was like, "This is the worst. This is, this is not ideal." Iowa is not the only state, Iowa and Iowa State are not the only programs where this is happening. It's interesting that they're the ones being caught because this stuff gets monitored everywhere, and it really makes me wonder why it isn't happening elsewhere, who's not looking into it, and maybe everybody else is just getting a reprieve, and this is a lesson. Like, if you are a college athlete, do not bet. You are going to get caught. They track all this shit. This isn't, unless you have a guy who is off the books, so to speak, don't.
And should you be punished if you bet the under?
Well, for Iowa, that's fair. You might just be a smart person.
Just saying. David Jackson next. Number 1, Duke is only non-conference game where MSU basketball will be the underdog, but MSU will win that one. 2, with no injury last year to Jaden Reed, Darius Snow, or Jacob Slade, MSU would have won 2 more games, and the whole program narrative would be very different. 3, people who do not use the Oxford comma are ass.
Appreciate you, David. Yeah. But I do like that as a third take. Something off the chest, so to speak. To your number 2 point, there's no question. If Jaden Reed, Darius Snow, and Jacob Slade had stayed entirely healthy, especially Xavier Henderson, throw him in there. If they had a year where they were just healthy, I think they win 2 more games pretty, I don't want to say easily, and it would feel different.
You said easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back through the games, but they're just a very different team with some of those guys, without question. And that's one of the things I think they're discovering now. And I wasn't here for Mel Tucker's presser last Monday, but it sounded like he was a little snippy and a little annoyed at some of the injuries.
He missed you.
And what they're discovering, again, is you can have guys like, Simeon Barrow, for example. It's got to be healthy. You can have all the depth in the world, but Barrow's a pro. And when they don't have the next guy who's at that level yet in the program. And so that, I think what he's starting to realize is, just being reminded that they don't yet have quite the depth of talent you need to compete at the very highest level. Because ultimately injuries are going to happen.
Alan Pearlstein next. Number 1, the biggest unknown on this year's MSU team is the defensive backfield. 2, the Lions cannot afford to have multiple injuries on their offensive line this year. And 3, scheduling the MSU Michigan game at night at an alcohol-serving Spartan Stadium is incredibly misguided. Well, they were going to drink anyway.
Yeah, but it is. Look, this is the first year of alcohol being allowed and being served at Spartan Stadium for 4 of the games, starting with the Washington game, and Michigan State happens to be at night, which I don't know that they think is ideal. But you're not going to not serve just because it's Michigan State. That sort of says we don't trust people that they can handle it and this sort of thing. If you're going to do it, you're all in, and it might be misguided. The whole thing might be misguided. The line that is always used is people, when they don't drink to a deadline, are actually less drunk at these games. We'll see. I've been to NFL games where they haven't been drinking to a deadline and they're pretty damn drunk and there's some brawls.
There's still going to be people that are hammered.
So we'll see what happens. And if there are issues, the university has to be willing to, and there haven't been many issues most places, so that's what there is. But if there are issues, and there are issues at the Michigan State game or anything, you have to learn from them and be willing to act and adjust. It needs to be a safe place to bring a family. You ought to be able to think, I'm going to bring my 10-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter to a Michigan State game at night and not worry about some bullshit happening near me that is going to cause a problem and put their safety in jeopardy. And if it does, then you can't have alcohol at those games. And if there's some huge issue at Michigan State, the game this year, and I don't think there will be, because most people are reasonable people. There are tons of people at shared tailgates. It's just a few. And Twitter is worse than real life. And Twitter is sometimes real life, but it ain't real life with the Michigan State rivalry entirely. But if it were some massive issue where people just could not behave themselves at this rivalry, then I hope everybody else would write that they got to pause it. If people can't handle themselves, you can't have it.
But
I
how
don't
many
think that's
people?
gonna be the case.
I mean, if it's going to be I've seen people get pulled out of pretty much every game I've been to, but they get the people out of there right away. I mean, if you have 4 people get shithoused and there's a fight or something, so everyone has to suffer.
Yep,
that's bullshit.
Unless the only other way is some sort of deterrent where everybody gets to choose their punishment.
I'm sick of 4 to 5 people ruining shit for us. I mean, you can't have a fucking cap to a bottle of water at a concert because some asshole threw the top somehow up onto a stage.
I'm not talking about
stupid.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a brawl or something that like spills out into a section and kids get hurt or something like that.
Jesus, all right, worst case scenario.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Look, I have been in sections at NFL games with a lot of drunk people and fights nearby where I'm going to
you went 0 to 9/11. You're talking about kids and all of a sudden
we'll fix
big
this in
brawl
post.
with kids in it, dude.
Fix this in post. It would be better that way. Let's take a really quick break. We come back, we'll get our bearings. We'll stop talking about worst case scenarios and brawls and children dying at Spartan Stadium and all that good stuff. We got our Sunday night show of Couch in the Rube presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels.
Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with 1 awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. If you're looking forward to cool summer nights at the lake or backyard gatherings, make Muskox's spring and summer flannel collection part of your summer experience. Muskox's lighter weight 3 seasons flannel is perfect for warmer weather without sacrificing Muskox's noted softness or high quality. Plus, Muskox donates 10% of every $100 purchased to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. Visit GoMuskox.com to find the absolute best flannel for you and use our promo code CAW15 for $15 off your flannel order. Trust us, you've never felt more comfortable than you will in a Muskox flannel.
Christmas is around the corner and beautiful jewelry is on her Christmas list. So where will you go to buy that gorgeous diamond ring or that sparkly diamond necklace or that incredible diamond bracelet? Medawar Jewelers' 4 locations by the Lansing Mall by Meridian Mall in Jackson and in Portage have the largest selection and the latest designs of beautiful jewelry that she's been dreaming of. If an engagement ring is on your mind, come into Medawar Jewelers. photos and let our professional staff explain to you all about natural and lab-created diamonds. Our diamonds are set by master jewelers whose passion for their art shows so clearly in each and every piece. So, for that perfect gift that's on her Christmas list, come into Meadowars by the Lansing Mall, by Meridian Mall, in Jackson and in Portage, and we'll help you find it.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, our Sunday night show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Visit gomuskox.com to check out their full fall collection. And you can use the promo code CAW15, that's CAW15 for $15 off your flannel purchase. Jason, before we get back into these hot takes, have you ever been in a fight in a stadium or at a game at any point?
No.
Never.
Not that I can remember. No.
I love that pause to think that.
No, I've had altercations, but it never amounted to anything because I just never, when you're in that environment, there's so many people, you don't want to get in trouble or anything. So
yeah, and I don't want to get thrown off a balcony or something.
Yeah,
either,
I mean, well, if a situation presented itself where you had to defend yourself, I could see it. But if someone's just talking shit, I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I don't want that. Well, by the way, speaking of that, you are headed this week back to the Cornhole Championships in Wisconsin, where you got in a fight a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I thought you were just bringing it up because we played cornhole last year and we almost won the thing. But you just want to talk about the time I almost burned the house down with a relationship.
Yeah, how long were you into the relationship with Therese when that happened?
Oh shit, I don't think it was a year. Like I thought for sure it was over.
So explain to people what you did.
All right. Well, this is back when I was drinking Rube. There's a cornhole charity tournament that
for charity.
Yeah, that makes it sound worse too. That happens every year in Wisconsin. T's family does it. There's a bunch of people that do it. It's again for charity. And so I was loaded up on some Keystone Light and some Jägermeister, and we were playing this team who these guys were really good. Like you watch that shit on ESPN2 for some reason, and he's one of those guys that just hits everything. So we were getting beat like 18-1 or something, and I just had enough of this guy. And he started throwing bags like under his leg and like throwing it over his back. Like he knew that he was. Anyway, I just got fed up, and I picked up the bags and I just started walking towards him, and I was rifling at him, and he just starts running. And then Therese is like, Jason, she's yelling.
He's running away from you?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
I was pissed. And so anyway, I'm really good at this. I'm good at just walking away. I can burn it down, and then I can realize, oh my God, this is terrible. So I left the house we were staying at, and I just went back there and popped a Klonopin and just relaxed. And thankfully, my wife at the time, girlfriend at the time, she didn't break it. I thought for sure it was, when I was walking back, I go, well, that was a wrap.
It was in front of her family.
Some family was there.
Okay.
I'd have to ask Therese. I'm sure she knows moment by moment
exactly.
what happened. But so anyway, you live and you learn. But the funny part is I ended up, going back and chilling out. She forgave me for some reason, and then what else happened? That's probably it.
Are you friends with that guy now?
No.
You guys are best friends?
Okay, here's what I was gonna say. There was like an after tournament thing he was at. I didn't even remember what he looked like. Right. So I walked in there. Apparently he was in there, and he thought I was going to do something. Anyway, it's just a bad story, and I'm glad the drinking days are over. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
It is definitely, though, a story worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. Midtown Brewing with Trivia Tuesdays, 7 and 8 p.m. Right here in downtown Lansing. Get a team together. It's a great vibe, a great setup for trivia. Sunday brunch or any day or evening date night or drink with friends. Terrific menu. Place has a ton of character. It's a great look. It's a great feel. It's a great menu. Great drink selection at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. You can go to midtownbrewing.net to look at their selections. All right, let's get back into these hot takes.
All right, George W. next. Number one, Jim Harbaugh kicked the can down the road on the suspension because he doesn't plan to be at Michigan in 24. Make the college football playoff again and get hired by the Raiders. 2, sick and tired of MSU fans who treat every bit of news as a referendum on Tucker. And 3, A.J. Hoggard makes first team all Big Ten.
It's what happens in the summer, in the offseason, the Tucker stuff. It's when there is we're just not built for patience. College football, ideally, in the old days, like it just kind of went away for a while. And yeah, you get fired up. The preseason magazines start to come out early in the summer. You get to go read about the teams. But it wasn't this constant what's going, it is so much constant online, social media, recruiting, this, there's just so much of it that it's almost unhealthy in that sense, and it leads, in a world that isn't patient anymore, it leads to all sorts of swings of emotions.
Does it have anything to do with, I forgot what I was going to say.
All right, well,
I'll
give my other one.
No, I'm sorry. Tucker being transparent, would that have helped a little bit of people not reacting to some of these things?
What do you mean transparent?
I just talking about Payton Thorne, like it seems like in every press conference, Tucker seems kind of like guarded and doesn't want to give any information. If he gave more information, would
I think he's been pretty good. I mean, I think he's been pretty good this since the media days, and he's been pretty good at explaining about NIL and recruiting things about how he's not sure what people are actually getting, and a lot of that's going to come home to roost when promises aren't kept other places, and some of it already has. And they have one guy they picked up this year, transfer from Texas A&M, just that I think had something to do with that. So I don't think it has as much to do with Tucker. It has a lot to do with a season where momentum was killed and they struggled and people got frustrated with him, and so now there are doubts. I also think his number one here, I mean, and other people brought this up. Look, I totally agree with this. I mean, I would bet a fair bit of money that if Jim Harbaugh has the opportunity to leave Michigan after this year, he would go. Maybe not my mother's entire house or the rest of her retirement savings, but a good chunk of it. At least rent out a bedroom.
Gonna have to give her that gate code.
Yeah, it's not
gonna have a home.
Yeah, wife wouldn't be thrilled, maybe, but we'll figure that out. But yeah, I people talk about Michigan's program being in this great place, and I think the team is great. I think the program is good right now, but nothing is forever. You remember Alabama before Saban, and I'm not saying Harbaugh is that. And Michigan is a place where you ought to get a really good coach who can win, but Michigan has screwed that up before, and they lose a lot of guys after this year. There's no guarantees that this. You saw Michigan State at the heart of Dantonio. He had it rolling until he didn't, right? It doesn't take a lot for all of a sudden you lose a little steam, something goes wrong, you have a bad recruiting class or two. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there after this year.
Nestle's Quick Hotel next. Number one, MSU starter at quarterback in week 1 will not be the starter by week 4. 2, people need to prepare themselves for high anxiety games. 10-point win over CMU and a 7-point win over Richmond. That's what happens with a quarterback carousel. 3, we'll hear some groans against Washington, but MSU still pulls off the upset.
Yeah, if MSU gets to 3-0, if MSU beats Washington, I mean, the vibes will be extremely high. If they lose to Maryland, then and they still.
But if
wind
you
up
only beat
3-2.
Richmond by 7, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
fun week.
The CMU game is going to be interesting too. CMU is not supposed to be great this year. They're a middle of the pack.
But CMU has a history, has beaten Michigan State in the past. Would a loss be as bad as?
It would be bad because
sure, but I mean bad as Richmond.
Because the previous times that they've beaten them have been bad MSU teams. So Michigan State, the first time is the stunner in 1991, because back then it had been since 1919 that a MAC school beat Michigan State. Like, it just didn't happen. There wasn't as much parity, and that team went 3-8 for Michigan State. They lose the next year again, and that was a bad Michigan State team in 92. And that, or at least not a great team, very average. And then in 2009, that was the year, Central Michigan was really good then, but that was also the year under Dantonio during the rise where they took a step back and they went 6-7 and all that stuff. So I think it would signal big trouble if it's even a close game. I think there will be real concerns. I mean, CMU, from what I understand, is not built like a team that ought to give them a ton of trouble. It doesn't have this high-octane offense, so to speak, that can – but we'll see.
By the way, I loved your biggest games at Spartan Stadium column.
Oh, appreciate
Especially because you put in 2 losses. And the one you're like, I know this is another loss, but hear me out. I'm like, that's straight couch right there.
I think I put in 3. I think I put.
Was there 3?
Shit! It was the 91 CMU game, which was a huge deal.
Yep.
It was the 95 loss to Nebraska 50-10, which is like the best, maybe the best team that ever came to Spartan Stadium, and then the 2007 Michigan game, just because of what turning point that was and how impactful that was on that rivalry.
Lucas next. Number 1, MSU will be undefeated heading to Iowa. 2, MSU basketball will play out like the 99-2000 team. Some tough losses early on, but come into form when the chips are down. We all know how that season ended. 3, Oppenheimer will win Best Picture.
I have not seen Oppenheimer yet. I plan to at some point. I'd like to do it when it's because I hear it's worth it in the theaters. Undefeated going to Iowa would be, because if Michigan State could get to 4-0 heading to Iowa, even though those are all home games, but it's still 2 quality wins, and it's 1-0 in the Big Ten. You're not likely to win at Iowa, but it certainly takes the pressure off that. Because if you're 4-1 coming out of Iowa, headed to Rutgers after a bye week, pretty good chance you can be 5-1 halfway through the season. And for this year, this team, that would be a good deal. The vibes would be high, and you know, if you are 4-0 going to Iowa, you've got a lot of confidence. Things are going well. You found a quarterback. I mean, if you're 5-0 going to Iowa and you've beaten Washington and Maryland, chances are it's not just about the record. It's about how well you must be playing to have both of those games wind up being victories.
Bo McJunkins next. Number 1, MSU laying down and just taking the 2018 locker room incident was one of the biggest mistakes in this rivalry. If that were made public, things may have calmed down sooner, since both sides would have issues. Instead, MSU is the one who reputation gets assassinated always. Sorry. 2, Jehu Kalkrick said there was another tunnel camera angle that was never shown. That would have been shown both sides of the fight. It's ridiculous. No one released that, and we never got the other side of the story. Jimon Green was probably telling guys good game. Blue curtain. It's hot here. 3, Mel Tucker is blamed for the stupidest shit. Holding a competition because he wants to play the best player, and now Auburn's shitty quarterback situation that Thorne didn't run away with is a problem for him. No one cares about a kid who didn't want to compete.
So I think this is only partly fair. Like, Tucker shouldn't be blamed for wanting to have the best quarterback. And when you have an incoming 4-star who part of the recruiting process, and I'm talking about Levitt here, Sam Levitt, was that he would get to compete right away. The odds he's going to win it as a true freshman, almost nil. But, like, you've told him you're going to get to compete. Caton Hauser certainly is a guy who wants to have that opportunity now. Noah Kim has waited his turn. There's nothing wrong with that. If there's anything that I can understand, though, from Thorne's perspective, it's like, hey, man, just pull me aside first before you announce it to the media. And maybe Tucker sees it different. Maybe he did, or he thinks that it was obvious, or somebody had talked to him about that, or that it doesn't need to be done, that everybody should be competing all the time, and so who the hell cares? But I also understand from Thorne's perspective how you could feel like, man, I just started 26 games for you. It feels like an indictment on me, and to some degree maybe it is. But he
went to Auburn to compete, so he thought what?
Yeah, he wanted
the fact that I have to compete here, I'm out.
I think he thought he could win that situation. I think he felt wanted there. The coach is asking him to come in to help. Whereas here, he was there when the coach got there. He's been the starter, and now it's like we'd like to see these other guys. And so we'll see. Maybe, if Thorne goes down there and, he's like a Heisman candidate this year, and injuries last year and throughout the roster and himself were really what held him up, he'll get the last laugh. But there has
to be something in it, like he didn't want to. I mean, if he lost the Michigan State job, he doesn't want to hold a clipboard, right? I mean, is that part of it?
I think he did not trust that they weren't looking to replace him, right? And frankly, they might have been. They might have wanted to, hoping that one of the other guys had a higher ceiling than they thought Thorne had. And I think, we'll learn about these other guys, and we'll learn about Thorne down in the SEC at Auburn this year. Some of this will play out. And the two things don't have to, like, Thorne can have a good year. Doesn't mean it was the wrong decision to look at these other guys. Again, I mean, those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
John next. Number 1, this is my favorite time of year. Weather is great, and the fall is upon us.
Muskox time, by the way.
Hot take. 2, with the boost of interest from Messi, the MLS will try and lure additional stars near their prime. 3, after years of hearing about a blue wall, the media assigns an intern to finally answer such questions as, which library was Ward's car at the night it was wrapped around a pole? What show tunes were being sung while skipping up the tunnel? Was Weiss sharing a Netflix or Disney Plus password? Does Harbaugh like sides with his hamburger? After a week of investigation, the intern is given an on-air radio job, and all investigations are closed.
These are good. These are, it wasn't always. If Dantonio hadn't known about COVID as a hot take, and we had given the gift card away, this would be worthy.
Watching
job.
preseason games will give you cancer.
This is This is good. I do think like the Messi thing is the MSU will try to lure additional MLS will try to lure additional stars. They've done it quite a bit. Now the thing is, Messi is already 36, I believe, so he's aged well. I mean, he just won a World Cup and stayed in his prime late, and I think that's part of what this has allowed this to happen. But I do think the way they've structured his contract, he gets part of the Apple TV money. I think there are ways to get creative to help bring in big time players. I also, though, until they do, if it's always L.A. and Miami, I want to see it happen in Chicago, Kansas City, Minneapolis. I want to see the league be fair, and I'm a little concerned about that.
Just a quick question. I can't believe I'm asking this about soccer, but Messi, what's in it for him, the MLS? Is it just the cash, getting the Apple money? I mean, why would you do this?
Well, yeah, I think he knows he's at a point in his career where legacy is important. He just won the World Cup, obviously, in Argentina. That's going to be his lasting legacy. Yeah. He wasn't happy at PSG and Paris Saint-Germain, which is where he'd played the last couple of years after a long, great run at Barcelona. And I think, he looks at this as there is financial incentive. He didn't go to Saudi Arabia. Could have taken that money. But this is a chance to sort of build the next stage of his career like David Beckham did in this country and other things and be a global superstar in the sport forever in ways that you maybe wouldn't if you don't include the U.S. And then there's a lot of money. I mean, he gets a percentage of like Apple subscriptions, which is insane for the MLS deal.
All right. Alec in Mid-Michigan next. Imagine wasting your time bitching about a newspaper publication. These fine folks know that they don't have to read the articles, right? Like if you don't want it to gain traction, don't acknowledge it kind of thing. But alas, it's quote tweet after quote tweet.
Alec plays on my Monday night soccer team, by the way. Full disclosure here.
I agree with Alec.
And he's a Michigan fan and a good guy overall. And so, he's right, though. I mean, people do let things get under their skin a little too much. You don't like a take, don't give it oxygen. I
just don't have any fight in me to try to do that anymore. Maybe it's because of my age, but I just don't want to search out and just battle with someone on Twitter. I just don't care enough.
I don't know if I'm worn down or if it's maturity, but
that's true. Maybe I'm just worn down. But.
This last couple of weeks, there have been a few things on Twitter I've wanted to like fire back at. I'm like, it's just not, Graham. Don't do it. Like your life is better in the moment. Yes, there's like 20 seconds of great satisfaction.
You've had too many donuts, mate.
And but then it's gone.
Grab next. Number 1, George Plaha gave his greatest football Spartan since 1971 when he began his career, and they are 1, Kurt Gibson, 2, Lorenzo White, and 3, Plaxico Burress. And I actually agree. 2, quarterback job has to go to Noah Kim. He actually chased Payton Thorne out of town, and don't tell me Minnesota didn't want that shutout. And the Buckeyes' second stringers aren't better than most teams' first stringers. 3, I like Caden Hauser, but he dropped a center exchange in the spring game and overthrew several receivers in the red zone. Glad he's making progress, but not ready yet.
We don't know that. We haven't seen enough of fall camp. We'll find out with their decision, and then we'll see him in games. Like the beauty of the whole thing is that it plays out on the field, and you can't hide once the games start. And if he's ready, if he's great,
these kids are 18.
If he's the Messiah, but maybe not Messiah DeWeaver, but the actual Messiah, then it'll the Twitter Messiah he's made out to be. Then we will see it. And Noah Kim, I mean, I think Noah Kim deserves the shot in week 1. I just think you want to send a message, too, that if it's close, obviously you give it to the best quarterback. But unless Noah Kim's been beat out, the guy who's stayed when he didn't have to, the guy who's, you got to give him a shot. Because I just think that helps your program. It helps. I think there are a lot of people who like him on the team. I just think if he never gets his shot and the team knows that the other guys aren't actually better than him yet, that's not a great deal. Okay, so since 1971, best Spartans, Kirk Gibson, Lorenzo White, Plaxico Burress. And I don't know what his criteria was in just terms of pure talents and all that stuff. To me, I had Charles Rogers above those guys. I had a number of guys. Darquez Denard is up there. But certainly these guys are.
Denard's in your top 3?
He's number 4, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. I still think he was an unbelievable college football player. I know in the NFL he was just an average cornerback for a while, but yeah, unbelievable.
Your words, not mine. DMB next, number 1. The MSU fan base doesn't get enough credit for seeing Johnny Spirit for exactly what he is. A true shitbag, but I guess he's our shitbag, right? Wow. 2, this team has 2012 vibes with a few offensive weapons stepping up. I could see 8 to 9 wins. Either way, it cannot look like last year. 3, alcohol in the stadium is pointless until MSU overhauls its concession program. It takes 30 minutes to get a hot dog. You will miss half the game trying to get a beer. Can we get a couch column on why 9-year-olds are working the concessions each week? Booze will still be snuck in.
So the 9-year-old thing, and I don't know if they're that young, but what the way the concessions work, and my parents' church used to do this there for a while, and so there will be actual, and there are fewer of these types of concessions than I think there used to be because there are more professional vendors. But it used to be very much like you signed up to work concessions and you got a chunk of the concessions. It was a fundraiser for St. Paul's Episcopal Church in downtown Lansing, or a fundraiser for your whatever group this was. And so you have all sorts of people helping out. You have kids who are part of the group. You have the adults would usually handle the money and do the big stuff, but you'd have kids down there.
Kids do the labor.
Kids pour in the Pepsi or whatever. I don't. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how young you were.
That would be the couch in the Rube concession stand. We just sit back, take the cash.
I used to
watch the kids work.
I've only ever worked a concession stand once in my life. It was for like a high school football playoff game at Lansing Sexton. Enjoyed the hell out of it. It was like I was really good at it. Yeah, I was better at that than anything I've ever been since.
That's sad.
Right. Well, yeah, but so is much of my life.
Bloomed early.
Yeah. So, Johnny Spirit. No, enough said. Solari, though, if you want to get under Solari's skin, watching Solari spot Johnny Spirit on the road and keeping him from tackling him and punching him, is my favorite thing. I mean, Solari's
my favorite thing was
that,
finding out everyone hated Johnny Spirit. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah,
really?
Solari's hatred for Johnny Spirit is up there. It's
Kevin from Rochester Hills next. Number 1, Phil Mickelson does not have a gambling problem. 2, Torkelson will have a better career than Cabrera. 3, Chase Cota will be the Lions' top receiver this year.
These are great hot takes and also gift card worthy. You don't. No, we already gave it away. Yeah.
Sorry.
Only do that
when
once
you say
show.
gift card, it goes off.
Sorry. You don't have a gambling problem if you can afford it, right? That's the whole.
Yeah, but that's
Barkley
just with
thing.
Billy Walters. What Billy Walters saw him gamble. I mean, he is a gambling addict.
No question he's an addict.
I mean,
the question is it a problem? Yeah.
I mean, will it come to find out that the live money he needed because of gambling?
That's possible. The one thing he has that most of us don't is the ability to make up millions. Quickly. The Torkelson have a better career than Cabrera. I would that one I would bet my mother's house.
Pump the brakes out.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to see him in year 22 either. We have Torkelson fucking bats we're selling. Sunshine Spartan next. Number 1, Jameson Williams will never start a game for the Lions. 2, the MSU defense will be the best in the Big Ten, but offense still struggles, and they go 7-5. 3, putting your 2-week notice in is ass unless you hate your job.
Yeah, it sucks if you got to do it. Jameson Williams, there's a lot of talking now.
Do you have a new gig, though? I mean,
I hope things are all right.
If you like your job,
are you moving somewhere, or why you have to do it? Yeah, I don't. Jameson Williams will never start a game for the Lions.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think obviously there's been some things that haven't been great out of the gate. and the injuries and whatnot. But at least
getting suspended for gambling after Calvin Ridley did last year and all these other motherfuckers. I mean,
yeah, but he was not betting on the NFL. He was just
who cares
in a hotel.
Just put the fucking app down and just until you retire.
Yeah,
just don't gamble.
Yeah,
I guess that's me saying that. This person's name I have no idea. Street Goal. Something
sounds good.
All right, one last time. I keep hearing from media types in Michigan that there's no blue wall in the media when it has been documented and proven in the past and no doubt exists today. The fact reporters neglect that Michigan has made a concerted effort with manipulation and with media help for decades going back to even pre-70s. Bo and Falls is documented proof. Do a little research. I get it. You are a friend with all of them now, but institutionally it has been proven. Example, Falls admission.
That's Joe Falls. Let's point this out, though. I'm not talking back in the 80s and 70s and 60s.
Welcome to the blue wall.
Journalism was an uneducated fool's profession for a long time, at least sports writing. And no offense, there's some great writers, but there were a lot of them who wrote some shitty stuff. I mean, there was a guy in Kalamazoo who didn't retire that long before I got there. In fact, I technically replaced him, who wrote the same fucking lead every time, right? Like, and these guys had these jobs for 40, 50 years, and they just weren't that good. And then there were the columnists were big deals, and they were too buddy with lots of. There's lots of stuff in the old days. I'm not defending the old days of journalism, the old school columnists. I mean, there are some interesting stories with them too, where they were the other way. Where and I can't remember. I don't want to get this wrong. If it was Joe Falls or somebody else, but who never went down to the post-game press conference because he was like, I'm not going to let them change what I think, instead of getting actual information. I don't know. But like, and again, that might not have been Joe himself. I'm just saying, like, when you start to go back, I'm not going to defend. I don't know the way it was. There's lots of situations where you get too close to people and it influences the coverage. And, we've all been there as writers where you feel like you're almost too friendly with a coach or something at a certain time, and you have to back off and make sure there's sort of understood guardrail. So I'm not going to say what's happened over time hasn't created this perception. Michigan is closer to Detroit. Michigan football is a bigger deal than anything at Michigan State in terms of readership in this state. It just is. And with everything else, we cover what's a bigger deal more. But with Michigan State and Michigan, we're not able to do that because of the rivalry and the feelings and all that sort of thing. So, I'm not defending the past and the way things came to be.
Some dude next. Only one take. Long. My favorite. But hopefully worth it. After moving back to the Detroit area upon graduation during the 90s, when we would still read print newspapers, I quickly realized that the MSU coverage in the Detroit papers was total ass and converted to the Oakland Press, which was pretty good and fair at the time. Here's the point. You're in complete control of it, so don't consume shit that you think sucks. And it's pretty fucking easy. Don't like the WNBA? Don't watch it. Block all the stupid fucks on your Twitter feed that bring no joy to you. You can see the blue wall content from a mile away. Disregard it. But we do need Couch to admit it. That is the fun part.
I appreciate you some, dude. Good takes.
Welcome to the blue wall.
Jay Riemenschneider. Number one, I know you say MSU fans have tasted success and can't go back, but it's been about a decade since that 5-year Dantonio run, and they had no big success before that since the 60s. From 2016 to now, the average about 6 to 7 wins a year, not counting 2020. Maybe that's who MSU is at this time. 2, I get the frustration of going back and forth, streaming to linear TV, but I hear pods and then some seem confused on what Peacock is and how to find it. It's the NBC Universal Comcast streaming service. Comcast is the biggest internet provider and cable company. Peacock is not hard to find. 3, USC, Texas, LSU, Florida State, Tennessee, and Penn State are all going to go under. Place your 16 parlay bets now.
Means under the wins total there. I don't know what Penn State. I like the over for at 9.5, but could be wrong. So again, these are hot takes. So a couple points here. One, I agree with Peacock. Like most of the best
Peacock.
Even the best the Man City game on Saturday. Much of the Premier League is on Peacock. There are lots of good things on Peacock. I think they do sports pretty well. I'm not that concerned about it. I understand
people can't figure out how to get on it. Or?
Yeah, I mean, we're just headed that way. It's going to get more and more like this. It's not perfect. And for some people, this is going to be a pain in the butt. For some of the grandparents out there, it's going to be a pain. For the ability for people to flip onto something and happen to find your team kicking somebody's ass, it's not ideal. There's no question about it. To the top point, though, it's been about a decade since Dantonio's 5-year run. It's been eight years now. But they did have success before that from the 60s. I mean, that 99 team, that rise, that end of the Saban year, they had gotten somewhere, and that created a level of hope. In the late 80s, they had a run that was about 4 years from 87 through 90 where they won Big Ten titles on both ends there. So there had been other stretches for sure. So who MSU is, there's no doubt who MSU is right now, MSU football is what you see on the field. That's 100% fair. But people are going to have – the success wasn't that long ago. I mean, the beginning of it really was the Rose Bowl run in a lot of ways, and that's just 10 years. And so most fans can remember that, and it doesn't feel that long ago, and people want it back. It's very much modern times.
Sports Guy 1919 next. Number 1, 90 degrees in mid-August is too much heat. 2, week 0 should be forced to have at least one ranked versus ranked game. 3, we should hammer college football unders based on the new clock runs even after the first down rule.
I hadn't thought about this, and it'll be interesting to see, and obviously the market will adjust quickly. But there are going to be probably at least 7, 8 fewer plays a game. And so if you just blindly, and I don't know how much that's been adjusted and taken into account right away.
Bookmakers adjusted to that?
It's hard to know exactly.
We just broke the code?
It's hardly to know. I don't know.
That's why I love gambling.
If we took the under on every single college football game in week 1.
The excitement in your voice when I read that number 3. You're like, you know what? This is something here. Like the bookmakers haven't adjusted.
Download the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. Put money on all. No, I'm not going to tell you what to do gambling wise. That would be
Jaden Reed, Rookie of the Year, 50-1 sprinkle.
But not that's actually not a horrible play. We missed Kyle's above.
Shit, I'm sorry, Kyle. Oh my God, Kyle. If you're looking for a team to follow in the Premier League, Brighton is a great candidate. A young and exciting team, a sustainable transfer policy and business model, and a seagull as their mascot. What's not to love? Overall, great start to the EPL season. Perfect appetizer to college football.
Brighton is they went from a team I couldn't stand watching a couple years ago to I just love the way they play. I think they're a great one to follow. They're same mascot as my dad's old team, the Gulls of Torquay, similar somewhat region of the country. I agree. They're a great one to follow, especially right now. And you're not like picking one of the big clubs, but they're going to be in the hunt for a top 4 finish in a Champions League spot next year. And they're in European football and the Europa League this year. So there's extra games even to follow. If you're looking for a team, Brighton is a really good choice to do so. Less frustration than like being a Lions fan. That's the best way of putting it. I will say this though. In a lot of parts, seagulls are like pigeons. I mean, they are basically rats with wings to a lot of people, even though they're somewhat majestic. So I don't know 100% whether it's a great mascot, but I'll take it.
Jarrett next. FBS random takes. Number 1, Georgia Southern beats Wisconsin to win 2 in a row against Big Ten teams. 2, Oregon State wins the Pac-12 and to end the conference. And 3, Duke beats Clemson week 1.
All things that would be fun to root for. First of all, Duke, I think, is going to be decent this year. I don't know what Clemson, if they're going to be just way too much better.
I like the Oregon State thing, too.
I do, too.
One of the best O-lines.
I mean, who doesn't want to root for that, right? They're supposed to be really good. The Pac-12 is going away.
I would need money on it. I mean, I'm not just going to root for them.
I'll root for Oregon State to win the Pac-12 in the final year of the Pac-12. That's kind of fun.
All right.
It's like you're getting screwed. Forever, we're going to be known as the team that closed out the Pac-12.
Mike Scott next. Number 1. Kingsville, Ontario area is a great place for a short weekend getaway for wineries, food, and Lake Erie. The Ambassador Bridge, though, is a bleeping debacle. Bleeping. 2, however, apparently your U.S. streaming services don't work over here. Neither does Zillow and many other apps.
It is frustrating. Yeah.
3, why can't we get at least one good week 0 football game? I mean, I'll watch a game or two, but you would think we could get 1 to 2 showcase games with teams who would like second bye week later in the season. And 3, why can't read that. Bonus, Jason, what do you think about Max Homa and other golfers crying about fans yelling in their backswing? I mean, the fan should have been kicked out, yes, and I know all about golf etiquette growing up as a caddy, But can't these guys tune out the fans?
Well, no, okay. I'm interested in your take on this, but a lot of this they're worried is like gambling related. It's live betting related, so that's why they're doing that, and that's the concern.
But
right?
as a caddy, you would know. I mean, as a golfer, as a shitty golfer, but my backswing, if someone said something, I don't know. It's really tough to. And by the way, the Baba Booey, I mean, it was fun about 15, 20 years ago, but now we're still yelling Baba Booey, get in the hole. I mean, those are the people you need to go after. Like, just cut the shit. And I'm sorry, but in your backswing, that's ass.
No, and there's a couple ways to do this. One, you can either, like the Masters doesn't have phones on the course. You can either make it so people can't have phones on the course. You're supposed to be watching golf anyway, and if you didn't have a phone on the course, then you can't live bet, and then you take some. Or the other solution is it's just open season to pummel into the ground anybody who does this and just beat the shit out of them. And then that'll stop happening. It'll be a
I mean, you
deterrent.
can yell at any point with these guys. These guys are pretty out in the open and accessible if you could just shut your mouth during the backswing. But like you said, if it's gambling related, whoa.
Then you get a problem
scary.
if that's the thing that's happening. To the week 0 point, because a couple different listeners have brought this up. The problem with the week 0 games is, again, there's no preseason football in college football. So what you don't want is like this huge game that's going to impact your – and I get that there are conference games now in week 1. There are big games, but these are early start games, and I don't think teams generally want to be involved in huge games in the week 0 that sort of – like think about how Nebraska felt last year. Nebraska's season was ruined. The end of a coaching era sort of took place because they went to Ireland to play Northwestern. Like, they don't play that game. If they play like some St. Mary's of the Poor the next week, maybe they get some confidence. Maybe people don't know how bad it is. Maybe the coach survives the season. Maybe it's a different vibe. I don't know. I can understand why coaches are apprehensive about playing big-time week 0 games.
Mr. Neurotic Pants next. Number 1, MSU will put up a fair amount of points on Central Michigan University, but CMU will have adrenaline and pride, which will make a quarter and a half interesting, 38-20. 2, there won't be any fighting between players before or after the MSU-Michigan football game this year. The game itself could be a brawl. Let's hope so. An emotional contest or brawl favors MSU, who will eat the lungs and spleens of the Wolverines.
Very graphic.
I love to hate so blameless ones. 3, even if this game went neck and neck, as long as MSU was able to put together a game-winning drive at the end where a quarterback and rusher or receiver look like bona fide playmakers, I'd still be happy, but it wouldn't spell out a bad season. Friday night under the lights is edgy.
Yeah, I mean, I think again with what you're looking for in week 1 type games against Central Michigan is competence, something to be excited about, hoping it works out well when they play better teams, and then no red flags the other way. When you can't run the football, a few years back couldn't run the football against Bowling Green. It's like it's not great. If your secondary is getting shredded against an average Central Michigan quarterback. You don't want anything that you go, boy, that's really a problem. That's the biggest thing. And if you don't have any of those things, you ought to win comfortably.
Shep next. Number 1, Graham saying kickball is the sport you play when you can't play what real athletes play. During a conversation about grown men playing soccer and softball, was one of the top 5 most unintentionally hilarious takes he's ever had. That could be a new one. Your best unintentional takes. 2, first, he blocked his mom's shot in a pickup game and yelled, "Get that weak shit out of here." Then he blames her wanting to see Pittsburgh for his failure as a shortstop. Jesus, couch.
This guy listens. Yeah.
3, within our lifetimes, the Saudis will approach the top 30 or so college football schools and offer them all $100 million plus a year in perpetuity to pull the football teams away and from their own pro league, where they license the school colors and logos and play the campus stadiums, but the teams and players will just be pros that don't go to schools.
I'm pretty confident that the Saudis, and I know that there's some nerves about their involvement in pro sports in the U.S. and all that. I'm pretty confident it will never dictate the college level, because there's just so much ethically that if you're a university,
pretty confident, or
I'm very confident. I mean, maybe the SEC, because that's a league where like mothers would prefer their kids play football, even if there was like you could have overwhelming evidence of CTE, like killing people by the time they're 25. And most moms in the SEC would be like, it just means more. We play football down here in Texas and Louisiana and Florida. I just don't have a lot of respect for the way they – I mean, look at the size high school football stadiums there are in Texas and certain places. Like, the priorities are – don't get me wrong, they're fun and all that stuff. And they do allow you to get some other things done, because if you just tie a school bond to a football stadium, you can get whatever you want. But, man, the priorities down there are just pretty whack. So I'm not saying down there they wouldn't consider something like this, but the North would save them.
Couch on fire next. Number 1, Spieth and Korda are my favorite golfers, but they've just become bogey machines. Hear you. 2, Cabrera is only one of 2 players, Aaron, to have 3,000 hits, 300 lifetime average, 500 homers, and 600 doubles. Still not given enough accolades. And 3, MSU could win 5 or 9 games. Confused.
I do think Cabrera sometimes, because he's played so long, not being great.
Yeah, but the Tigers haven't been great for a little while as well. And it's people still respect Miggy, but how many they're doing, Bally's is doing some documentary about him. I mean,
It's
Lord.
It's easy to forget his greatness because we've just seen so much of the rest of it.
When I see him, I know. Well, I see he's morbidly obese, but when I see him, I know he's one of the best hitting players of all time.
Yeah,
the best players of all time.
And I think the further we get away from his career, that will be.
I know, but we just don't need it to watch him turn a double into a single.
No,
double play balls. It's just
And today was one of those days too that he almost went for the double. I wish he had tried.
Just go.
Yeah,
the fuck. Tyrone Couch, number 1. MSU football wins 15 games this year. That is Michigan State, Mississippi State, and Montana State, but it still sounds good. 2, life hack. Out of Michigan people can order the better-made snack bags from Sam's Club and have them shipped. 50 bags for $16. If only Graham could get Groovy Donuts on board with this, I would weigh 400 pounds and could play lineman for MSU. 3, jobs without pensions should be illegal. I worked for a bank and got fired 3 days before my pension vested. Then worked for a telecommunications company and got fired a month before I was vested. So maybe pensions are ass. At least I have one through school 15 years later.
That sucks. It feels like those things the timing was related. You didn't have to pay the pension if you got rid of you. That
Shouldn't that be a crime, though, if you're 3 days away and they fire you? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and unless
you should be able to hire Jeffrey Feiger and he comes in and flips that around.
Yeah, unless you took your pants off or something.
Well, yeah, of course. You start beating your bag at work. I mean, you're done.
It's not
no
good.
pension for you.
I have a pension through the Kalamazoo Gazette still.
Really?
Kalamazoo,
what are you going to do with that $4?
Yeah, well, it's actually like $265 a month when I turn 65. Because the pension only kept going for the first 4 years I was there.
Straight to the gambling apps.
And
money's going to go.
Yeah, I will not tell my wife
try
about
to flip that. Cracker sofa next. Number 1, Jalen Berger and Nathan Carter will be the second best running back duo in the Big Ten. 2, Noah Kim is the starter going into Week 1. Katon Hauser is the starter going into Washington. And 3, Mel Tucker wins Big Ten Coach of the Year for taking MSU to a New Year's Six bowl game.
The idea that Noah Kim would be the starter Week 1, Katon Hauser going into Washington. I mean, it's possible that you would see the struggles and you would see enough of Hauser before Washington that change was made. I think it's much more likely coming out of the Washington game, if there were struggles, that you had a change before the Maryland game. You probably wouldn't want it to be originally on the road at Iowa, but absolutely could happen. And by the way, just to give people a sense of how great certain newspaper chains were, you talk about the pension, like MLive, which used to be Booth Newspapers, they called it the Golden Handcuffs for a reason. They paid people like they were at major metros. After you were there 25 years, you got health care for life. The pension plans were amazing. Obviously, they stopped it after a while when I was there a little while even after it stopped. But it used to be unbelievable gigs. So I don't know why I shared that.
No shit.
Yeah,
newspapers used to be great. Is your hot take?
Printing money.
Yeah. They were great.
And they, don't get me wrong, there's a little too much legacy cost in there, and that may have been some of the issue too.
Rich Searing next. Number 1, Harbaugh and Michigan will never be punished for him lying to the NCAA. They'll drag this out, and the BS will continue. 2, if Harbaugh doesn't win it all this year, he never will. Either way, he's gone after this year. 3, if MSU has any semblance of a kicking game this year, we win 7 to 8 games. Bonus, Graham will overlook this tweet and beg for forgiveness.
Rich, I put it late in the pod just so you'd have to listen the whole time thinking it might have been overlooked. I apologize.
Rich, I'm so sorry we missed your hot take.
It was funny in my head. We'll
have to fix this in post.
But I agree with you on Harbaugh. Again, I think there's a real good chance that he's gone if he has the opportunity to go. I don't think that – it'll be interesting if he's gone, if there's any punishment for Michigan. I don't think their players should be punished, or I don't know what you would do if there were other staffers who would have any issues. But I think if he's gone, then you're right. They won't get punished.
Dark Mantonio next. Number 1, all the people who would buy Elon's vehicles and Kanye's apparel, the quote-unquote woke crowd, are the exact same people who would or should be diametrically opposed to Elon and Kanye's way of thinking. Doesn't make sense that they would support them financially. All right. 2, we can't truthfully compare Tucker's tenure to Dantonio's. Unfortunately for Tucker, this is a vastly different game today than back then. You can't win big today, which is what MSU fans expect. Do it the way Dantonio did, and now you don't get as long of a leash to build it. 3, Graham, you may be getting that tattoo. Michigan versus Ohio State will always be, but wouldn't surprise me if MSU isn't a permanent rival of Michigan with all this Big Ten expansion. Ratings do drive this, but Ohio State and Penn State wasn't protected, and that's the second most watched game in the Big Ten 9 years out of 10.
So here's the thing, though. That isn't a rivalry, though, and they don't value it James Franklin said this at Big Ten Media Day. He was asked about not having a rivalry and their whole unrivaled thing, and he said, they didn't come into the Big Ten until the early 90s, and a lot of things were tried to be made rivalries, and they become rivalries in a point in time. Michigan State, Penn State, they played it every year at the end, and that became a secondary rivalry. The land-grant trophy you've had Penn State, Ohio State, but it's not Michigan State is just so much more ingrained. It is not going away. It won't. There's so much money involved for both schools. Michigan doesn't want it to go away. Michigan State, the Big Ten doesn't want it to go away. TV partners don't want it to go away. And they will just play, you'll just get through the cycle of playing every team, every couple of years at a slower pace to make sure that rivalry happens. There is no way. I do know that was one thing that was said to Michigan State when they were offered to go into the West Division, the idea that, and this is back when the East and West were formed, that they wouldn't protect the Michigan rivalry if they wanted that. There is no way that, you talk about tattoos, I will be stunned, and that would be, there's just no way. There's no way. Because when I brought this up, the idea of not playing that game for a year or two, even that concept is a way to cool things down. The pushback is there's so much money involved for all parties. There's just no way it ever happens.
Welcome to the Blue Wall.
Hans Jurgen, number 1. Oh, happy day. My progeny has discovered deliciousness of donuts. 2, you can experience the same joy, Graham. Be fruitful and multiply. 3, if MSU's quarterback play isn't better this year, get ready for a long season. Plan your fall color tour.
Here's the thing I would say. They've already built it in for you. October 7th, we're going to Leland. It's the bye week. You go up north. Fall colors will be changing on the trees. You can do the fall color tour and not miss an MSU football game.
Great. Jake Hawkins. Number 1, I understand that games on streaming services is the wave of the future, but at the same time, most sports fans, particularly old school ones, just might get turned off from sports and watching them because, let's face it, we didn't ask for sports on streaming services. 2, first, the Lions took Jameson Williams with a torn ACL. He plays 8 games last season, records just 1 catch. Then he gets suspended for gambling in Lions facilities, hangs in bad areas of Detroit, doesn't perform in the first preseason game, and now injured. He's trending to bust status. 3, some story from over the weekend, a week ago, with a tornado hitting Perry. The picture on social media was unbelievable. Thank God nobody was killed or seriously injured. On a much more positive note, I host a DJ trivia night at Cafe Sports Bar and Grill in Perry every Tuesday. Come out and play.
That is
when the fuck are we going to this?
That is a transition right there.
Tell me when we're going to that.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah. All right, bonus from the Hawk. Your last summer vacation looked fun, Graham. Where did you stay at in Marquette that has fire pits on the beach? It's been quite a while since I enjoyed a bonfire on the beach.
We rent a house that has it's called Island Beach Drive, and there's a number of basically the house is all their backyards back into the beach. So we rent that house. It's I wouldn't call it a completely private beach, but but you have to live on that area. It's not mostly a public beach, and that's why everybody has their own little fire pit. So that highly recommend if you can do it. It's not cheap, but it's not like there are a lot of bedrooms at the place. So we do it with a group of friends, and it's not that expensive if you bring in 4 or 5 other people, and so it makes it affordable, and it's a sweet week if you can do that sort of thing.
How far is Perry from here?
Half hour, 40 minutes.
All right, we got to get to one of these trivia.
See Jake at trivia. It's a heck of a transition there to go from like all these people. Glad nobody's killed and injured on a this is like me trying to do an ad read off of something serious. I absolutely I think it's too early on the Jameson Williams too. Trending toward bust.
It's not too early to say it.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
he's and we've dealt with draft picks that have done this to us, so we kind of have PTSD. I think it's time to kind of go, okay. I mean, we still want him to come back after the suspension and play well, but as of right now, the mentality for Lions fans is he's going to be a bust probably.
Yeah, I want to see what his year looks like when he comes back. Let's see him perform, then we'll judge.
But it's not crazy to judge right now. Upper Deck Jerk Guy, lastly. Number 1, I ran an analysis of all University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Michigan State articles that I could scrape through a large language model, and it showed definite bias towards Michigan. # Blue Wall. 2, soccer might not be as bad as I thought.
There we go. All right.
There we go. 3, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor underachieves with talent. MSU overachieves with talent.
Yeah, but Michigan isn't doing it with a bunch of 5 stars. I mean, their recruiting rankings aren't what Alabama or Ohio State are, and they built it they've got it rolling right now. There's no question about that. We'll see if Mel Tucker overachieves with talent. That's the question. Dantonio did it, and we'll find out about Tucker in these next couple years. We appreciate all of you producing our show. These were some really good takes. Fantastic effort. We also appreciate our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, and if you're looking for a place downtown to grab a bite, go on a date night, a beer after work. I love the American Stout there. Go to Midtown Brewing Company.
I love Tim
Stout. Same guy. Might be inspired by him. The whole stout beer apparatus. Also, thanks to our friends at Muskox. Go to gomuskox.com to check out their fall line of flannels. And again, CAW15 for $15 off for Couch in the Rube listeners. We will be back later this week, either Wednesday or Thursday. Do some Twitter questions. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Rube.